one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, December 14th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, -1, in Smiths Falls, 0. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. A protest over Quebec's Bill 21 will be held in Chelsea today over the noon hour. The crowd expected to gather at the office of MNA Robert Boussier. The protesters are showing their displeasure with that bill in Quebec. It bans anyone in a position of authority from wearing a religious symbol at work. A grade 3 teacher in Chelsea reassigned outside her classroom because she was wearing a hijab. Quebec's premier said the teacher should never have been hired because of the law in Quebec. The Prime Minister said as recently as 2 days ago he's not ruled out federal intervention in this case. We'll have more on this coming up shortly on the Rob Snow Show. City News Time 9:01, and now the forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
We're in good shape for today with sun and cloud, but we're under a special weather statement for Wednesday afternoon. There is a potential for some freezing rain around the Ottawa area. High today, +1, -7 for the low, 1 for the high tomorrow. That's the high today, +1.
And right now, feeling just a bit colder in the wind. It's -1 degree in Ottawa. It's 0 in Smiths Falls. Scientists are learning more about the heavily mutated COVID-19 variant threatening to overtake Delta now as a dominant strain in Ontario. What they are learning is both reassuring but alarming. The new study reveals just how well our vaccines work against Omicron.
This latest research is from South African scientists who were the first in the world to raise the alarm about Omicron and this new variant, and they have some promising data about vaccines, at least. The real-world study of 211,000 patients, over 70,000 of them who believed to be infected with Omicron. This study of those patients does suggest that Pfizer doses appear to give 70% protection against hospitalization with the variant. However, South African medical officer of health, Dr. Angelique Coetzee, telling Sky News that Omicron does continue to show that it is far more easily transmissible.
It is most probably equal currently to Delta, and it might be more transmissible than Delta. We would only know as the time progresses and we reach the top of our curve.
Another positive signal from this data is suggesting that Omicron appears to cause less severe illness than earlier variants of the coronavirus, but again is a little more resistant to the current vaccines. Kevin Meisner, City News.
City News Time 9:02. Now, how does this new variant affect everyday life? Dr. Doug Manuel, senior scientist and epidemiologist at the University of Ottawa, says more restrictions may be needed.
Our least intrusive way and best way to reduce what we're seeing is going to be vaccination, but we just can't vaccinate fast enough. So do we need to get some breathing room? Do we need to put in some restrictions, circuit breakers, other things?
Now, the full interview with Dr. Doug Manuel on the Rob Snow Show this morning at 11:45. The mayor of Ottawa has tested negative for COVID. Jim Watson was in self-isolation after a recent positive test within his staff. Watson says he does not have symptoms, but will continue to scale back in-person contact until a second COVID test result comes back. And if you think back to the first vaccine against COVID, it may be hard to believe, but it was 1 year ago today. In Hamilton, Ontario, a nurse among the first healthcare workers to get a jab. And Sarah Fung says that she felt the prick of the needle and thought of her grandmother who died of COVID-19 at a long-term care home. While vaccine signaled optimism, the threat of the Omicron variant has dimmed hope, at least for some. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Say X,
he's got the Y.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Busy day around here. Busy day in the news game. You want to know the news? Have a view on the news? You're in the right place. Good morning. Welcome to the Rob Snow Show. This is City News. Heavy-duty stuff in the mix this morning. Bill 21, when I called in my Snow and 60 commentary for City News and Shea 106 this morning, Quebec's bill for state-sponsored discrimination. We're going to dive right back into that this morning. That has been the law on the books in Quebec for the better part of the last 2 years, more than 2 years now. It was passed by the National Assembly in Quebec City in the summer of 2019. And the very next day, after it passed, legal challenges were launched. You know, people have been fighting this. Some people have. Some people have. The people behind these legal challenges, challenging this most unjust, ugly, vile law, nobody in Ottawa has lifted a finger to help them. Because they're cowards. Cowardly politicians who are more interested in trolling for votes among the nationalists in Quebec than they are for standing up for what is right for Canada. And Mr. Legault, the Premier, he's playing the Federalists in Ottawa. He's playing them like a fiddle. He has them all dancing to his tune. And he's flipping a giant middle finger to the rest of Canada when he talks about that teacher from Chelsea, about how she shouldn't have been hired in the first place, and about how wearing a hijab is like wearing a T-shirt that says the Liberal Party on it. Only in Quebec could you even get away with stuff like this. Only in Quebec. Only in Quebec. It's amazing to me. You had 3 federal leaders, supposed to be Federalists, Trudeau, Singh, and O'Toole. They talk your ear off about how diversity is our strength. And we need to push back against intolerance. But, hey, when it comes to Quebec, hands off. Hands off. Anything goes. I mean, anything goes. Anything. Like this. Like this. Sad, sad, sad. A sad time for Canada. Yeah, and this from the government that spent months and months and months and months, speaking to all sorts of organizations all over the country, vowing it would spend tens of millions of dollars over so many years on a new anti-racism strategy. Going to explore racism and combat racism and eliminate inequities. These are the government's words. And yet 10 minutes north of Parliament Hill, not all that far from the Prime Minister's vacation retreat, a teacher has been removed from a classroom for wearing a hijab, while the Premier of Quebec cracks jokes about it and basically dares the Federalists to challenge him because he knows they never will. Because they are failing this test of leadership. So that's what we're going to get into right off the top this morning. And you know what? We're only getting warmed up. Then it's the professor's turn. Professor Ian Lee, Sprott School of Business, Carleton University. We'll begin by talking about some municipal affairs. I want to ask him about the Watson news. Jim Watson not running for re-election. I don't think there's a city committee that Professor Lee has made his case to at one time or another. And I'm sure he has an opinion on the Watson years. And yesterday I was asking you, dear listeners, who do you think should run for mayor now that Watson's not running again? And a couple of you brought up the professor's name. So I will ask him if that's something he's interested in. Can you imagine? Mayor Ian Lee. I don't know. I don't know. Be careful what you wish for. We'll also get you ready for the big day in federal politics. Yesterday was the Bank of Canada that was in focus with the renewed mandate for the Bank of Canada. Oh, nothing says fun, Rob, like monetary policy. I'm glad I'm not the prime minister who would have to think about such things. Oh, wait. But that was yesterday. It was very wonkish. I guess we have to talk about it. Today, it's the fall economic update. See, that's fiscal policy, not to be confused with monetary policy. And according to a news report in the Globe and Mail yesterday from Bob Fife and Steve Chase, the Prime Minister doesn't think too much about fiscal policy either. Monetary policy, fiscal policy. He's only the leader of a $2 trillion economy, one of the most advanced economies in the world. Why should he trouble himself with such things? But we'll also tee up that fiscal update that comes later this afternoon. We'll do that this morning with an economist from one of the banks. Benjamin Reitzies is with the Bank of Montreal. He does think about fiscal policy and monetary policy. Also on the show this morning, Dr. Doug Manuel, epidemiologist, senior scientist, Ottawa Hospital, one of our go-to experts on COVID-19. He is mentioned in this front page story in the Ottawa Citizen this morning from Elizabeth Payne. Omicron shocks even the experts, it says. Omicron. Only days before Delta overtaken as province's dominant strain, it says. You'll hear that later in the program. I spoke with him this morning. We'll play clips of it throughout the morning on the Rob Snow Show and during our newscast. Omicron, how fast it's spreading, and the threat that it poses to our city, our health, our well-being, our healthcare system, because it is so transmissible. It's a numbers game, he told me. This is going to cause much higher numbers for case counts. And he told me this morning, and God bless him, he has a very good track record. Senior scientist, Ottawa Hospital. He told me this morning that right now, things look good at the Ottawa Hospital, and things do look good at the Ottawa Hospital. Not too many people in the Ottawa Hospital with COVID. Half a dozen or so. Not a single person in ICU. All of this is good news. But because the prediction is because Omicron is going to cause such a big jump in the number of overall cases, it's inevitable. Ladies and gentlemen, it's just math. It's inevitable. Omicron is going to mean many more people will end up in the hospital and all the cascading effects that has on the healthcare system. Look at Kingston. 2 hours from here, we have kind of ground zero right now for COVID in Ontario. And Dr. Manuel told me this morning, we're going to look like Kingston soon. And what are they doing in Kingston? Public health restrictions. And he thinks it's only a matter of time before that happens here. Public health restrictions. Don't miss that interview. It's at 11:30 this morning. We're going to play some highlights throughout the show, okay? But I also want your take on it this morning. One specific angle of the story. This is exactly why we do the Talkback Hour every morning on the Rob Snow Show between 10 and 11 o'clock. Because I think it's important that we hear from you. Get you on the record. Let you share your opinion. These are very important matters of public interest. 750 is our call-in line. 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310 right after the 10 o'clock news. I want to take as many calls as I can on this. On this question, are you willing to live through another round of public health restrictions if that's what it takes to control the spread of Omicron? Or do you think we're doing enough right now and we should just stay the course? More restrictions or stay the course? More restrictions or stay the course? And by restrictions, I mean things like capacity limits for indoor dining, other indoor events, non-essential retail. Think about where we were in the summer what we were doing in the summer. Are you willing to go through that again to limit the spread of Omicron? Or do you say, I don't think so. I am so over that. I can appreciate that feeling. I have this sense of inevitability, however. But I can understand if people are not enthralled with the idea of restrictions again. We have mask mandates, we have vaccine passports, we have a high vaccination rate, we're vaccinating children, we are giving out booster shots. Gosh, we're doing so much. But you can't escape the reality that it's happening elsewhere already. Local health units are bringing back public health restrictions like the bad old days. What should we do here? This is the Rob Snow Show, and this is City News.
Opening a business especially in a pandemic, in that kind of situation, is very challenging. First, people don't know me, people don't know my product. To build a new clientele, to build a trust for them, to show them that I care about it. I do love my food. That was the biggest challenge. And of course, in all lockdown, where I had to face it regards my employee, girls, ladies, what they work for me. I didn't want to tell them, sorry, I'm closed, I'm not having a job for you. No, they have families, they have kids to feed. So this is very important because we are family orientated. And we decided to open. We, of course, essential business. So been very tough, very, very tough, as we didn't see people on the road. Market was completely quiet, but we knew it that we have to wait, and we knew it that we're gonna be fine. In this town, we built online shop, Vedel Online, and we did Uber Eats, which one is picking up and is very, very popular. We have a really good feedback. So this is the song for my heart. And and we try to expand. I'm thinking about opening another location. So I want to make Vedel famous. I want to make the Vedel place to be for all the families with kids. Try the traditional food, what their grandparents cooked in the countries when they're from, or even Canadian people. They're more than welcome to come and try our famous pierogis. I try to be passionate about my food, organic food made with love, with all homemade, organic. So you can find food from all over the Europe: Polish, German, Ukrainian, Romanian, French, Armenian. So all kind of different types of food. Homemade lunches. We focus on the homemade lunches, grandma style. I keep always saying, like in my Genia Babcia house, how she cooked. I wanted this love and this food over here because I believe that will bring all people around me. And all the organic cold cuts, lovely selection of sausages, cheeses, European cheeses, great selections of mustards, French cookies. All what you need from Europe you can find here at the Vedel Touch of Europe. If you think good way, that's it. You have to. I had the option to cry in the corner and say, oh, pandemic is coming. No, you need to stand up and fight for it and have your eyes open, think outside of the box, and do it.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News 101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
There is a protest this morning. It's in support of the teacher removed from the classroom, reassigned at Chelsea Elementary over Bill 21. It is happening at Electoral Division of Robert Bussière, 490 Route 105 in Chelsea. That's where that's happening this morning. 1:30 this afternoon, that protest is happening. As I mentioned, basically almost 24 hours after Bill 21 passed through the National Assembly became the law of Quebec, legal challenges were launched, and we're joined this morning by Noah Mendelsohn-Aviv, Director of Equality, Canadian Civil Liberties Association. Good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to hear from you. Tell me about the legal challenges that have been launched by the Canadian Civil Liberties Association against Bill 21.
The CCLA, together with two litigation partners, a young woman who was studying to be a teacher, and the National Council of Canadian Muslims, so all three of us together knew that this bill was coming. It had been introduced, and we have a phenomenal team at IMK, and we were determined to try and stop it as soon as possible because we knew that it would be terribly harmful to people who, wear hijab and other kinds of religious garb or symbols in Quebec. And so our excellent team was ready to go within 24 hours of the bill becoming enacted into law. We filed our challenge against the bill in June of 2019. And we also asked the court to essentially delay its coming into force until the whole legal question could be resolved, the legal question of its constitutionality, because as far as we can see, and there are many groups who've challenged it since as well, this law is unconstitutional. So our first round of hearings was going to court and asking the court not to let this law come into force because people could lose their jobs, their professions, their livelihood. And unfortunately, we were not successful at the Superior Court. We were not successful on appeal at the Quebec Court of Appeal, although there was a strong dissenting opinion that would have stopped the implementation of the law. And since then, of course, the main issue, which is the constitutionality or the unconstitutionality of the law, has been adjudicated. We were in court last year before the Quebec Superior Court. We were successful in small part. Some of the other challengers were successful in small part. And large parts of the bill were left intact, the bill which is now the law, and now it is on appeal at the Quebec Court of Appeal.
Okay. You're not surprised that this is happening to this teacher in Chelsea, right? This is exactly what you thought would happen, right?
Yes, and this teacher is one sad and painful example. She's a real person who loves these kids, and the kids obviously love her, and the community obviously loves her as a teacher. But she's one, and there are many others like her who have been harmed for the last year and a half since Bill 21 became law. And most of the people who have been affected by the law are Muslim women. So there's been a disproportionate impact on women who come from largely racialized communities, largely immigrant communities. So there are a whole lot of impacts here that, in the words of the judge who ruled on this case, the effects are cruel and dehumanizing to people.
What do you say to the Quebec government, which defends this as saying it's a secularism bill? It's about keeping religion out of the state's business. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I think that there is there's a lot of nuance.
Okay.
Because secularism has been adjudicated in our courts several times over. And there are a lot of different ways to understand secularism. Secularism is intended to stop the state from forcing its opinions on people. Whether those opinions are Catholic opinions, as used to be the case in Quebec, whether those opinions are, that you must practice a particular religion or must follow a particular kind of observance. Everybody has to observe the Sabbath. That was one of the Ontario cases. Sure. Because it's the Lord's Day. That was the name of the act many years ago in Ontario before they got shut down because the state shouldn't be forcing people to observe the Sabbath. So that's what is generally meant by secularism. The state shouldn't be telling you what to do. Unfortunately, Bill 21 is exactly doing that same thing. It's just a different ideological system. The state is saying, we are going to force you to not practice at the risk of your job, at the risk of your profession.
To not practice your religion, to not have faith or whatever the case may be. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. We're going to force you. So if you say that the state cannot force a particular religion on people, that's secularism. If you say we're going to force certain individuals out of their jobs because they happen to be working for the government or happen to be working in the public sector, that's a very, very particular reading of secularism, and it only affects those people whose religion requires them to wear something that is visible. Because there are lots of people who are religious who are continuing to work in public sector jobs. If you can tuck something away so nobody can see, whether it's a necklace or whether nobody can tell that you're wearing a wig, then, or something else that you might have under your clothing, and there are all sorts of religious practices out there, or if you happen to believe very strongly in a particular kind of faith that doesn't require you to wear a visible symbol, your job is safe.
Mm-hmm. We're going to play a clip. We have the Prime Minister was asked yesterday about Bill 21. What are you going to this point, his government has done nothing on Bill 21. This is what he said. This is through a translator, so we'll have to listen to this. He said this in French yesterday. Let's listen here.
Well, I always said very clearly that I'm deeply disagree with Bill 21. I don't find that in a free and open society that someone should lose their job because of their religion. And this is no longer a theoretical issue. There are families, there are communities, there's a community in the Outaouais that is reacting. And they're very concerned. They're very sympathetic because of the teacher, Fatima Anbari, who lost her job because of her religion. Quebecers are huge defenders of freedom of expression, gender equality, freedom of conscience. We're people who are always there to defend our rights. And I know that there are many Quebecers who are very concerned by the fact that in a society that claims to be free and open, that someone can lose their job because of their religion. So within our process, a province has passed legislation, and the citizens of that province are defending their right before the court.
Okay. He didn't really answer the question, is the federal government going to do something about it? I guess my question for you would be, what could the federal government do that organizations like yours, Canadian Civil Liberties Association, has not tried to do already? Is there some other avenue for the federal government? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, this is a topic that is obviously highly sensitive, and so we haven't really spoken out on it before. But I will tell you this, and we haven't spoken out on it because we are before the courts, and so we're careful about what we say publicly. Okay. But I will say this much: Bill 21 is unconstitutional. The Constitution protects everybody, and it protects minorities, and it protects minority rights. And that is something that should be of concern to the federal government. And if they were to intervene in this challenge, they would have the opportunity to weigh in on the protection of minorities under the Constitution of Canada, and that is something that, in our view, they should be doing. It would be useful and important for the court to hear from the federal government as an intervener in this case.
thank you for your time this morning.
My pleasure. It was good to talk to you.
Yeah, Noah Mendelsohn-Aviv, Director of Equality Canadian Civil Liberties Association. The Professor, after the news. This is City News.
In Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, December 14th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, -1 degree. It's 0 in Smiths Falls, and here's what's making news this hour. A protest is planned for the noon hour today at the office of a Quebec politician. Protesters over the reassignment of a teacher at a Chelsea school is the reason for people gathering at the office of MNA Robert Boussier. The teacher was removed because she violated Quebec Law 21. That says nobody in authority can have a visible religious symbol, and this teacher wore a hijab. The Canadian Civil Liberties Association says its legal challenge so far not successful in Quebec court, but there is an appeal going on. A spokesperson tells the Rob Snow Show the case is sad and a painful example of what Bill 21 can and will do. The group calls Bill 21 unconstitutional. Another city councillor is at least thinking about a run for the mayor's chair. Matthew Fleury tweeting out this morning he's encouraged by support he's received and calls from people about running for mayor. But he says it's something that takes careful consideration and consultation with people like his family before a decision is made. Fleury says he will listen to community leaders and constituents, though, before making a final decision. The current mayor announced he will not be seeking re-election next fall. That is Jim Watson, who tweeted this morning that he has tested negative for COVID-19. The mayor tweeting that he was in self-isolation after a staff member did test positive over the weekend. Watson says he will continue curtailing his in-person meetings, though, until he receives results of a second COVID test. City News Time, 9:34. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Let's just jump right into it. He's the poor professor from the Glebe, Ian Lee, professor, Sprout School of Business, Carleton University. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson is not seeking re-election, as I'm sure you have heard. The longest-serving mayor in Ottawa's history. At one time, he was a ward councillor for your ward, Capital Ward, way back in the day. What do you think of the news? I'm pleased.
I'll be very
Please.
frank.
Okay. All right.
And no, I don't say this out of malice. I don't think Jim Watson's a bad person. Don't misunderstand me. I don't. I've never said that about him. I don't think he was anywhere near the leader that he was maybe perceived himself to be, or the others said he was. I think he was very much of the management school that you put your finger up to the wind and find out which way the wind is blowing, and then run to the front of the parade. And I say that seriously, because if you believe that real leaders, genuine leaders, make very tough choices. Pierre Trudeau used to famously say, "To govern is to choose," and make very difficult choices. You can't say yes to everybody and everything, especially when you know it's not right. Lyndon Johnson, from the South, said, "I'm going to lose the South by supporting the Voting Rights Act in 1965," and he did. He lost the South, but he did it because it was the right thing to do, to address the systemic racism in the United States at that time. Mayor Watson, I think, failed on 2 or 3 times, and I won't go after him on LRT, because these things happen with very complex technologies. I don't fault him on LRT.
Oh, really? Okay.
I fault him on the failed leadership on the urban boundary. We know that roughly 500,000 people are coming in here, and we bought into this preposterous lie. It's a lie. It's a fraud that we're going to put almost 500,000 people in the urban core of Ottawa. And even if it's only 60%, we're not going to put 300,000 in the urban core. It is absolute specious nonsense.
Well, they're going to try.
He didn't say that. So I fault him on that. And I watched him on CBC doing his sort of, farewell. And he still continued to dissemble. That's a polite word for misrepresent and not tell the truth. On Lansdowne, he says, "Thus the people opposed wanted to keep it as an asphalt jungle." This is a bald-faced lie. Not one single human being in Ottawa said, "Let's keep at Lansdowne Park."
Oh, you were all too busy calling it a park. First of all, you kept calling it a park, which is a lie. That was a big lie that you were telling.
No. What we said
Clive Doucette is still saying, they're going to save the park. Save the park.
Let me get my point out. There were all kinds of options. There was no unanimity, for sure, and the people opposed to the development that occurred. But I think there was a general consensus that there should be, I even said it publicly repeatedly, rip out all the asphalt, rip down all the buildings and turn it into Central Park, New York, or that wonderful park in Vancouver.
Yeah. Okay. I know, because you people in the glebe think that Lansdowne Park belongs to you. It doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the entire region,
My criticism
Professor. I don't want to fight this all over again with you.
My criticism of Mayor Watson was to mislead and deceive on the argument. If he said, look, there were different points of view, and one point of view wanted it to be made into a very major urban park with trees and flowers and grass, and we didn't support that, that's fine. Okay. But when you say, I stood up to those who wanted an asphalt jungle, that's called demagoguery.
All right. So you don't, you don't like the Lansdowne thing,
No, just speak the truth to power.
Well, fine,
I didn't agree with the other
I don't want to litigate all of this all over again with you,
It's not about litigating it, Rob. It's about speaking truth about the position.
Okay, yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Whatever it is. Light rail, you're not even going to give him any fault for light rail. Okay, fine. Okay, then let's move on from that. His record on on debt and taxes. Some people question that.
We'll get there in a sec. His third failure was this. We know that the government, this didn't happen yesterday morning, that the government wanted to decentralize and move people out of Ottawa. The pandemic just gave them the excuse.
Right.
This has been a long time coming. And he has perpetuated this idea, I really mean it, that somehow tourism is going to save Ottawa, which is just a load of absolute nonsense.
What do you mean?
And he has not developed a new vision. I'm talking a long-term vision.
I don't know if he said it was going to save Ottawa, but it's a very important industry. It's the third largest industry in the city.
Anyone who looks at by the way, it's not. It may be the third largest. It's still puny. Okay,
it's not puny. It employs 50 or 60,000 people.
Yeah, they're all low wage, minimum wage, part-time, seasonal jobs. There's a job, an industry called technology sector that employs huge numbers of engineers, very highly paid, very well paid, out in the West End. I don't know if Jim Watson's even been on a regular basis to the West End. He lives right downtown. He's very much an urban downtown guy. That's not a crime, but I don't think he ever really understood the suburbs.
All right. Okay. All right. On his own fiscal record, how would you, debt? He added to the debt. A lot of that is because of light rail.
Yeah, it is. And I supported light rail. Okay, the idea.
And his property tax caps that he had in place for his time. I'll raise your tax 2%, and now it's 3%. But
well, that's the third.
Is that good?
I guess third or fourth criticism is that he never really ever said, let's go in, times are changing, let's re-examine everything we're doing. And when he went from 2 to 3%, even though there's many people in Ottawa who are not getting 3, 4, 5% salary raises, some of them are frozen at 0 and 1. And he never said, out of the $4 billion, which, by the way, proportionately to the population, we have some of the highest taxes in Canada. Forget the states. I'm not comparing it to the states. We have much higher taxes than Toronto or Calgary and so forth. And he never said, I'm going to show leadership and go through that with a fine-tooth comb, not waste, fraud, and abuse, which is nonsense, but spending money on areas that are not high priority. He didn't do a strategic reprioritization. He did it on LRT, but he didn't do it on the rest of the $4 billion, and now we've got this train wreck coming down the track, and I don't mean LRT. I'm talking about the federal government vacating 1/3 of the downtown, which is going to gut the PILT revenues coming into the city of Ottawa and knock down the tax revenues of the businesses that were dependent on the downtown. We're going to lose, I figure, $250 million all in, which is $250 million. And those words I don't believe that those words ever crossed the lips of Mayor Jim Watson.
Okay, so Bob Shirley's going to run for mayor. Diane Deans is running for mayor.
Yeah.
Catherine McKenney running for mayor. Suggestions this morning, Matthew Fleury running for mayor. A lot of liberals. A few people called my show yesterday. I was polling, who do you want to see run for mayor? And they said, I want Ian Lee to run for mayor.
If I was 20 years or 25 years younger, I wouldn't mind. It'd be a lot of fun. I mean,
do you have any interest in running for mayor? Let me nail you down here.
I'm as strategically objective and ruthless about myself as I am about, say, Mayor Watson. I'm 68, and I think this is a young person's job. Okay. We need somebody sort of 45, 50 in the prime.
Bob Shirley can do it. He's 80 years old.
With the greatest respect, and I admire Bob Shirley and respect him, but he is simply too old. I'm sorry. Stop being ageist. Our bodies slow down. Okay. And what we need is someone who understands that the business the city of Ottawa has to go through a profound transformation and stop trying to literally solve the problems of the world, global warming, and thinking that we're going to do it with scooters and left bands and right bands. That's why Ms. McKenney, am I pronouncing her name?
McKenney.
Yeah. I'm sorry. She doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell, to be blunt. Okay? And what we need is a blue liberal type like before we had Jim Durrell, or for that matter, Larry O'Brien without the baggage. I like Larry O'Brien, but he did have baggage. We all know that. Right. And the third one, of course, my favorite, was Jackie Holtzman. Mm-hmm. We need a young Jackie Holtzman type, blue liberal, business liberal, because the city is small L liberal, and look at all the ridings that went liberal. There's the proof. Yeah. So we need a blue liberal who is pro-business, pro-growth, and is not in the pocket, ideologically speaking, of all those interest groups that pour out of the woodwork every time there's a hearing on, e.g., the urban boundaries, who are 1/10% of the population, and yet manage to hoodwink the councillors into believing that we
not
can
beholden to Bike Ottawa, Ecology Ottawa, Eco Watch.
Some of them. You listen to them and you think, what universe did you come from?
Horizons.
How can you deny there's 1 million people and almost every one of them have a car, and there's actually people on council say we got to get rid of the car? Do they drive down the street or walk down the street? I go into the downtown the odd time. All I see are cars everywhere. And I go to the suburbs. I go to Billings.
I was driving through Westboro yesterday. Where they still have free parking through parts of Westboro, if you can imagine. Which is supposed to be the cycling nirvana, right?
It's a dream. It's a pipe dream. It really is.
Smokes,
it's a hallucinatory,
traffic.
LSD-induced. I'm not saying they're on drugs. I'm not saying that.
The traffic in Westboro is nuts. It's crazy. All right, look, we have to stop here. When we come back, we'll turn our attention to what's happening in politics these days. We have a renewed mandate, Bank of Canada. It's kind of boring. But
actually, I found that yesterday. I watched the whole thing, and I'm telling you, it was the most
all
bizarre.
Right. If anybody can animate it, it'll be you. We'll come back.
Straight out of Monty Python, I assure you.
Okay, all right. We'll be right back with Professor Ian Lee, Sprott School of Business at Carleton. Rob Snow Show, City News.
So the birth of Absinthe was 2002, I think, 2003, and I was working at Urban Bistro, happily, where Allium is now. And then the space where Holland Cafe was came up. It's on the corner of Spencer and Holland. And I spoke to the landlord, and there's a lot of interest from a lot of other people, but he and I just, got along super well, and he put a lot of faith in me. So Carmen Turner is his name. He gave me the lease to the place and really pretty much gave me all the equipment in the place. So I was really lucky. I've been really lucky with landlords that way, actually, both my current landlord and Carmen Turner. Because if there hadn't been Carmen Turner, there wouldn't have been Absinthe. So we were there for a few years and just sort of outgrew the place. And then now we're here. It's obviously been tough, and it's been tough for everyone. I mean, that's been the big democratic sweep of in restaurants and the hospitality and the arts that we were talking about earlier. It's like everybody's been impacted pretty much the same. From everybody that I talked to, we're down 80%. We're climbing out now. I think one of the saddest things is we went down to 2 employees from 25. And we're now at 4, and we're bringing 2 new people on this week, so we'll be at 6. So it's little steps. So it's been tough. It's I've got the most expensive clubhouse ever here, because some days you come and you don't do any business, but you're here. But I'm grateful for what I do have. I think everybody's optimistic now, not necessarily just about the vaccine, but about the vaccine, spring, being able to be outside. I think you're going to see a lot of pop-up things happen in parking lots and on sidewalks and like that, rather than being actually inside somebody's commerce. I think we'd like to take it outside. I know my staff would. My staff like the outdoors now, all of a sudden, all 4 of us. 6 soon. We'll be doing some business in the patio in the parking lot, and we have a patio out front. And I hope other restaurants and stores will do the same. I hope that they take advantage of the sidewalk and doing sort of, guerrilla marketing and stuff like that, and really shaking it up a bit. You can find us at Absinthe Cafe at 1208 Wellington Street West in Hintonburg. And you can find us online at absinthecafe.ca.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Back with Professor Ian Lee, Sprott School of Business, Carleton University. What did you enjoy or find so peculiar about the update yesterday on the Bank of Canada's renewed mandate?
I found it, I've been watching press conferences. I'm talking those that deal with business, economic policy, budgets, deficits, fiscal updates, interest rates, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I've been following this literally since I did my PhD back in the 80s. And so I've watched a lot of press conferences by finance ministers, Bank of Canada governors, and prime ministers dealing with economic policies, because that's my area of interest. And I truly, and I don't mean this unkindly, and let me put this caveat out. I think Christy Freeland is a very intelligent, educated person. I think the governor of the Bank of Canada, Tiff Macklem, is a very intelligent, highly educated person. This is not a cheap shot about their intelligence. They're very smart, very educated, and very experienced. This is why I found their press conference, it was straight out of Monty Python. And let me explain that, and what I mean by the incoherent. It was incoherent. She started out for the first 60, and I watched the entire thing beginning to end, and I read the full multi-page document from the Bank of Canada and the finance. So I read all the text that was put out, the printed word, as well as watch them and listen to the journalist questions. She started up by saying, And she used lots of adjectives and adverbs. The mandate for inflation targeting going all the way back to Brian Mulroney has been fantastic. She said it's been superlative. It's been unbelievably successful. I mean, she went on, and I agree with her, by the way. It has been. We've had 2% inflation from then until now. And so she was telling us about how incredibly successful it was. And then she pivoted and said, in essence, and now we've got to change it. That gave me whiplash, policy, intellectual whiplash. Wait a minute, you've just used the most strong adjectives and adverbs telling me why it's just fantastic. Well, if it ain't broke, why are you fixing it? Then she pivoted. Well, there's major demographic changes. That's code for aging. But she didn't want to say that, and I think I know why. Technological change, inequality. And I thought, but wait a minute. We have massive labor shortages, not as she implied but didn't say so because she's too smart to say it. She can't say we have massive unemployment in Canada because we don't. We've regained all of the jobs lost and more from the pandemic. And then she said, so the Bank of Canada is going to be responsible for achieving, quote, maximum sustainable employment. In the very next sentence, she said, however, this is not measurable. And it's beyond the control of monetary policy. Now I really had whiplash. Okay? I had whiplash because she's talking about a mandate that has been successful that has to be changed due to demography that is causing labor shortages, but she's implying we have unemployment problems. So the bank's going to be responsible for growing the employment when we can't measure it, and they don't have the tools because it's beyond the control of monetary policy. And by this time, I was saying, good God, like this is truly incoherent. This is straight out of a skit from Monty Python and the Minister of Silly Walks, really. And so where I'm going, then I said, okay, this is not a technical document in the macroeconomic sense of the word. This is a political document. And what they're doing, because they very carefully rebranded or redefined, if you want to use a different word, the inflation band from a very tight 2% to 1 to 3. To give the bank, quote, flexibility. Now, what does that mean? Well, what it means is they're rebranding inflation to allow the bank to tolerate higher levels of inflation. I'm not talking 5 or 10%. I'm just saying they want to give him higher rates so that when somebody jumps up in the opposition, and of course we're talking about Pierre Poilievre, and starts, attacking her, criticizing her, she or the central bank say, what are you talking about? Here we have a new mandate, and the new mandate tolerates 1 to 3, and they're banking on it getting back down into closer to the 3 range. So even if it's within 2 or 3 decimal points of 3, they can say, hey, look, we're basically within the band. So I think this was a political document to redefine and rebrand inflation so that they don't have to put up interest rates. And the hook, the justification, and this is where she really went off into outer space. She started talking about global warming and Indigenous reconciliation and inequality, and I'm sitting there saying, good God, the government of Canada is responsible for fiscal policy. They have over 500,000 employees. I looked it up. They spend about 2/3 of $1 trillion right now, okay, partly because of the pandemic. And they have everything from UIC programs to Canada Mortgage and Housing programs to you name it. That's fiscal policy. A lot of those programs are focused on achieving fuller employment, more jobs. And there's no Indigenous Relations Department inside the Bank of Canada. There's no Unemployment Insurance Commission inside the Bank of Canada.
Right.
There's no Industry Canada that can give grants to Bombardier inside the Bank of Canada. That's all fiscal policy. And then she said several times, we, meaning the Bank of Canada and Finance, are going to have joint responsibility for this. Well, it seems to me that she's rebranding the responsibility onto the Bank of Canada. So ultimately, they've got someone to blame down the road if it gets higher. That damn Bank of Canada, not doing what they're supposed to do under the new mandate.
Okay.
So it was a
interesting story in the Globe and Mail this week about Michael Sabia. Very interesting. Very interesting. He was a Mandarin already, right, in Ottawa, and then he went to run BCE, and then he went to run Caisse de dépôt, one of the largest pension funds in the world, the Quebec pension plan, and he's wooed back to be what is he? Deputy Minister, right, of Finance, right? Yeah. Sidelined, really.
Yes.
According to Bob Fife and Steve Chase reporting for the Globe and Mail. Quote, Prime Minister Trudeau's senior lieutenants, such as his Chief of Staff, Katie Telford, his senior advisor, Ben Chin, Tyler Meredith, the Finance Department's Director of Economic Planning wield considerable influence over the country's economic direction and the policies adopted by the Ministry of Finance. The insiders say Sabia's agenda remains unfulfilled because Mr. Trudeau has never been a leader preoccupied with economic and fiscal issues, unlike Brian Mulroney, Jean Chrétien, Paul Martin, or Stephen Harper. You have a prime minister who is not really interested in the Department of Finance. It's Scott Clark, who is Deputy Finance Minister under Paul Martin. If the Prime Minister's not interested, your Minister of Finance not interested, doesn't matter who you are going to bring in, you're not going to be successful. Mr. Sabia has, according to sources, tried unsuccessfully to push the PMO and Ms. Freeland to rein in government spending. What do you think of that? It's really not about I think what you find interesting is not really about what these people are saying. It's who's saying these things.
That's right.
Like, for example, Scott Clark.
Yeah. Right. For those who don't, that doesn't ring a bell. I mean, many people will know who that is. He's a very distinguished guy. I've read his op-eds over the years. I ran into him a couple of times downtown events. He's got, I think, a PhD from Cambridge in economics. Like, the guy is uber smart.
Oh, is that all? Okay.
Former deputy minister. I mean, this guy he's got a big ego, but he's really, really smart, and he's really experienced. And I think, and he's not a liberal. I'm not going to accuse him, even though I'm going to say he's a small L liberal, and there's no doubt he's not a conservative. He hated Harper. He used to say that, his op-eds. But my point is, he is, I think, speaking what a lot of blue liberals are thinking or saying privately. And I think there's an emerging split becoming transparent in the Liberal Party between the progressive wing, which is Justin Trudeau, and call it the blue liberal. I just call it the blue liberal, the centrist wing, whatever you want to call it, the John Manleys, the Don Drummonds, even though he's not in the party. I mean, the people that are more business liberals, of which there are many, many of them. And I think that they convince themselves wrongly for some time that, well, once he gets into power, Justin Trudeau will, come around and he'll listen to us and he'll be the centrist liberal that historically liberal prime ministers have been. And they didn't realize, I think they misjudged him. And I think that just very quickly, and I hope I have enough time, I want to get this point out because I really think it's very important.
A minute and a half.
Okay. Justin Trudeau did not, and this isn't a slam, did not study, economics, business, public policy, sociology. He didn't do any social science. And he, from a very young age, he never had to. He was very privileged. And he became more and more associated, attached, friendly with what we would call progressives. And one of the central beliefs, a very big picture of progressives today, is that much of reality is socially constructed. There's no underlying empirical natural laws of economics. Inflation is socially constructed. Economics and deficits are socially constructed. Reality is socially constructed. I don't think that Mr. Trudeau believes. He doesn't think the deficits are important because he doesn't have, and Scott Clark is starting to realize that, along with many other blue liberal types. But Trudeau is not going to change course, and he's not going to change course tonight in the economic update. They're going to turn a lot of that pandemic temporary spending into permanent spending because he just doesn't believe in what most people believe, like a Don Drummond or a Scott Clark, in things like deficits matter and that interest rates can go up and it can, kick you in the backside. Mm-hmm. I just don't think he believes that. He believes reality is socially constructed. So if you tweet enough times, give enough speeches talking about, the need to recreate and reinvent society, that the underlying reality will change accordingly. And he doesn't believe that there are underlying fundamental realities like economics and exchange rates and so forth. So I think that's why there's this struggle is emerging or split is emerging, and we could see this bubble up in the next 2 years. Okay.
You were on the agenda last night.
Yeah.
Yeah, good for you. It's the videos on the website. You were talking about wasted spending in Ontario, right?
I was, but I've made it very clear it was generic to both the federal and the provincial level.
Okay.
And very quickly, I was arguing that all the data is in CRA. Corporate, all 2.2 million corporations, profit and nonprofit, including NGOs, have
we don't have time. I just want people, a lot of people here are fans of that show with Steve Bacon, The Agenda. It's a great show.
He's a very good guy.
Oh, yeah. It's an excellent interview.
And I found out off camera he's a fan of the Buffalo Bills. I'm not.
Okay.
I'm Patrick Mahomes, but I really admire their quarterback, Josh Allen, and he was he was very upset. Not upset. He was, saying my team didn't win last night. And I said, listen, I wanted them to win and send Tom Brady into an old folks home, but hasn't happened yet.
Okay, we'll talk next week.
Okay.
If not sooner. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Professor Ian Lee from Carleton. All right, when we come back, I think it's going to be a hot talkback hour because restrictions could be on the way, according to public health experts. And I want to know, are you ready to accept another round of public health restrictions if that's what it takes to control the spread of the Omicron variant? That's our question for the Talkback Hour, coming up at 10 o'clock. Well, after the news. After the news. This is City News.
WW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 1011 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, December 14th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, -1 degree, 0 in Smiths Falls. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. A protest over Quebec's Bill 21 will be held in Chelsea today over the noon hour. Crowd expected to gather at the office of MNA Robert Boussier. The protesters are showing displeasure with that bill in Quebec that bans people in positions of authority from wearing any religious symbol. A grade 3 teacher in Chelsea reassigned outside of her classroom because she was wearing a hijab. Quebec's premier said that teacher should not have been hired in the first place because of the law in the province. The Prime Minister has not ruled out federal intervention in the case. That is something the Canadian Civil Liberties Association is looking for.
If they were to intervene in this challenge, they would have the opportunity to weigh in on the protection of minorities under the Constitution of Canada, and that is something that, in our view, they should be doing. It would be useful and important for the court to hear from the federal government as an intervener in this case.
Noah Mendelsohn is Director of Equality with that group, the Canadian Civil Liberties Association, and says they are currently appealing this case before Quebec courts. City News time at 10:03. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
We're in good shape for today with sun and cloud, but we're under a special weather statement for Wednesday afternoon. There is a potential for some freezing rain around the Ottawa area. High today, +1, -7 for the low, 1 for the high tomorrow. That's the high today, +1.
And right now it's -1 in Ottawa. It's 0 in Smiths Falls. Ottawa's mayor says he has tested negative for COVID. Jim Watson tweeted he was self-isolating after a staff member tested positive over the weekend. Watson says he will still curtail in-person meetings until he receives the results of a second COVID test. The Omicron variant's first Canadian home was in Ottawa, but Kingston is the current epicenter of transmission. A local epidemiologist says our city is not far behind, and we should be expecting some change to our daily lives soon. Here's City News reporter Chris Curries.
What we're seeing in Kingston, we'll see shortly in the Ottawa area.
It will happen within days, if not a week or two. We're now facing basically a super transmissible variant.
That's Dr. Doug Manuel, senior scientist with the Ottawa Hospital, who tells City News that could mean more restrictions are coming.
We may need to slow this down through whatever means.
He says it likely won't affect schools, but it could impact large events, as we simply can't vaccinate our way out of this fast enough. Chris Curries, City News.
City News time at 10:05. Ottawa Public Health tweeting out just moments ago that all the COVID-19 vaccine appointments, including booster shots for those 12 and older, are booked. They're apologizing for any inconvenience and say they are working to add more appointments at some point later today. Pharmacies in Ottawa, according to Ottawa Public Health, continue to offer vaccines to eligible residents. And add another city councillor, or at least thinking about a run for mayor, Matthew Fleury, tweeting this morning he's encouraged by support he's received so far. He says running for mayor is something that takes careful consideration and consultation with people like his family before a final decision is made. Mayor Jim Watson announced earlier that he is not seeking re-election next fall. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
It's time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
I don't want to have to ask you this, but I feel like I have to ask you this, so I'm going to ask you this. For the Talkback Hour today, 750-1310. You know what? I'm even going to count the calls and keep track of your answers, okay? Because it is kind of a yes or no thing. Okay, yes, no, yes, no. Okay. 750-1310, 750-1310. Are you willing to accept another round of public health restrictions if that's what it takes to control the spread of the Omicron variant? Are you willing to accept another round of public health restrictions if that's what it takes to control the spread of the Omicron variant? Or do you think we're doing enough right now? We should just stay the course. Another round of restrictions or stay the course? 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. We have lines available. David's standing by there to take your call. I want to fit as many calls as I can, okay? Are you willing to accept another round of public health restrictions if that's what it takes to control the spread of the Omicron variant, or are we doing enough right now? By more restrictions, I mean the sort of things that we were doing before. If you think back to some of the restrictions that were in place during the summer. Okay. Capacity limits, indoor social gathering limits, no more than 5 people, you know, things like 25% capacity limit, non-essential retail, religious services, attendance capped at 25%, outdoor dining only, the dining rooms of Ottawa shut down. Remember the not so good old days, the not so good old days. You have it in you to go through that again? If that's what it takes to limit the spread of Omicron, or do we stay the course that we are on and see how things go? We have vaccine mandates. We have mask mandates. We have vaccine passports. We have one of the highest vaccination rates in the world. We are vaccinating children. We are giving out booster shots now. Do we really need restrictions? What do you think? 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. Okay, I want to take as many calls as I can, so let's get to it here. Kate in Ottawa. Kate, you're on City News. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. You can probably know already that I'm against more mandates. Okay. I specifically remember Lindsay Maskell, before all these vaccine mandates came in, she was on your show saying that we all have to get vaccinated, and this is why these mandates have to happen, and everybody has to get vaccinated, because I don't want any more people, stopping me from going to a restaurant. And people like myself were saying this isn't going to stop. It's going to continue, and they're going to continue to use this against us. And that's exactly what's happening.
Okay, but are they using it against you? Are they using it against you, or are they using it to try and help protect you? You seem to think, Kate, that there's like malice involved. It's ill-intended.
Studies. There was no scientific studies to show that closing down restaurants were the source of it. We were all piled into Costco. I called into the show twice to say Costco isn't even following these mandates. We're packed like sardines in there. They're happy that all this is happening.
Okay, all right. So the answer is no. That's fine, Kate. I had a feeling that would be your answer. Okay, Kate? No problem. I'm just asking the question, okay? You know that old line, don't shoot the messenger, okay? Don't shoot me. I'm just asking the question. You might not like the answer that's coming in a few weeks. That's the sense I get. Ed in Ottawa. Ed, good morning. You're on City News.
Morning, Rob. I'm 100%. I'm 100% with her.
You're willing to accept another round of public health restrictions?
Yes. Get the booster.
Yeah.
And get I wish we had enough balls in this country to make everybody get vaccinated, like some other countries are.
Like make it mandatory for everybody to be vaccinated.
Yes, but we won't get that.
No.
If we close this down again, this economy's done. There's going to be more people out of business. You can't. And we're never going. I don't ever think we're ever going to be out of COVID, Ron. Totally. I don't think we'll ever get out of it. It'll be around for.
So, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but they're starting to do this already in Kingston, okay?
Yes.
Like restaurants, you can't order a beer after whatever it is, 10 o'clock at night. You can't have karaoke. There's no dancing allowed. Like all of this stuff is starting to kind of creep back as the case counts go higher.
Yes. They are, but look at where it is in Kingston.
Yes.
It's all in the university area, or rocket scientists.
Yeah.
But Rob, we just can't. There is no way in hell, sir. People are just going to close up, go bankrupt, and that'll be the end of it.
So what should we do? Then?
We have to make everybody get vaccinated.
Yeah.
We have to make sure people get their shots.
Right.
And as I said, if we had enough coyones, we would get everybody vaccinated.
Well, should we have those things like capacity limits and, close the dining rooms and things like that? We shouldn't do that. Okay. All right. I misunderstood you, Ed. Thank you, Ed. Okay. Okay, Ed. Yeah, I misunderstood what you were saying at the beginning there, Ed. I apologize for that. Pete in Winchester. Pete, good morning.
Good morning, Messenger. No shots your way.
Okay.
There's restrictions. I think the politicians have to start considering the damage to the economy, as the last caller mentioned. All the bailouts and stuff that would be necessary damages the economy. We're seeing that inflation, despite the supply limits, and that's caused by this large injections of money and it pooling up in people's bank accounts till the restrictions are lifted and they're out, and then there's a great demand for stuff, and it is too hard on the economy. They'll have to target restrictions for those whom are most vulnerable, and that's the seniors. Although Omicron is starting to show that younger people are being involved, but hopefully not too badly. But seniors, yes, restrictions to the max, all considerations for those most vulnerable. Let the rest of society that's not vulnerable be more freer, because the economy will kill more people if it's damaged enough.
Okay, so it sounds like you're leaning towards a no. We shouldn't have the restrictions then.
Conditional.
Targeted
no
restrictions
can prove to be so damaging, and it causes a lot of depression. Opioid.
Sure. Yeah, I mean,
that's economy. Mental health. How many people are affected by being isolated? Well, we know some of the damage it caused, but no, they have to be very careful with restrictions, Rob. For the seniors only, for vulnerable only.
All right, Pete. Thank you. Thanks, Pete. Rob. Okay, yeah. Francine in Orleans. Good morning, Francine. You're on City News.
Good morning. I am for it.
You're willing to accept another round of public health restrictions?
Absolutely. I drive a school bus.
Yes, Francine. Yes.
Let me tell you, they are falling right now like leaves everywhere. We have school buses not running because there's COVID cases, and I had to be tested myself. The line was up to the outside of the building.
Wow.
It's no joke.
No. So you think we should get ahead of it? See, Dr. Manuel, we're going to play some clips of it. Dr. Manuel says, we have to get ahead of it. If we move too slow, it's going to be too late. That's what he's saying.
I think we should, definitely.
All right. Okay, Francine. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, bye-bye. Oh, yeah, it's a hot one today. As soon as you hear a caller hang up, that's your cue to call at 750-1310. I did not want to even revisit this ever again, but I feel that we have to now because they are already, 2 hours from here in Kingston, they're already going through this. Are you willing to accept another round of public health restrictions if that's what it takes to control the spread of the Omicron variant, or do you think we're doing enough right now? Let's just stay the course. What's your answer? I'll take your call next. 750-1310, Rob Snow Show on City News.
Well, we all loved our rock T-shirts growing up, right? It was our badge. Hey, we went to this concert. We knew that band inside out. So we kept doing that and kept promoting that. What's sort of happening now is that audience is dying. I always say the earth is flat. So the 60s rockers are falling off the end of the earth. So you don't see as big a sales anymore because my audience is disappearing. What's sort of helping to promote that history is the kids are buying vinyl. And luckily we have a vinyl shop in the neighborhood here, Record Center. So what's happening is I've seen kids come in with their dad. And the dad say, hey, do you have any Beatles shirts? Do you have any CBGB? Do you have any of this? I said, well, why? He said, well, because my daughter's into it. She's wearing my T-shirt. So slowly it's coming back, right? The kids are, I think, getting fed up with the generic music that's out there. And they want to click into something that, first of all, links them to their parents, something that they thoroughly enjoy now, and maybe they're passing it on to their grandkids. Pandemic has been a couple of things, definitely hard on everybody. So much messaging that's out there that people don't understand, stats that every day, Jesus Murphy, like I'm getting a headache just reading this stuff, right? So really it was just trying to understand where we were going to go from there. The city of Ottawa all of a sudden said, everybody's got to wear a mask. You got to wear it on the bus. People were scrambling, okay? And I had, the store next door had really big windows, so I just flooded the window with masks. Well, that was the activity that saved the business. People were coming in buying 2, 3, 4 masks at a time at $20 a pop here. But my masks were so different. They were the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, Queen, all the pop culture. Everything else out there was medical masks. And right, so people said, oh, I don't want to do that. I want to show my rock and roll. So it became the new T-shirt as far as I'm concerned. Well, what I've done, I'm Hindenburg. I'm now at 1114A Wellington Street, which is next door to the Fab Gear store. And the reason I've changed names, I've rebranded the store, is because I was planning on retiring. And in December, I go, oh, I'm not going to retire. But I've committed to changing what the store is about. So I came up with a new name, Fab Gear's Rock Shop, where legends are dressed. And essentially get that message out. I prefer, if the shirt don't fit, you come in, you try another one on. People like to feel the fabrics for clothing. It's amazing. Y'all come in and go, oh, I love that. Oh, can I try this? So that's the big difference. I'm not out to make a gazillion dollars. I stick the way I am, old school. I take cash, we take cards. Come on in and talk to the owner.
The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Are you willing to accept another round of public health restrictions if that's what it takes to control the spread of the Omicron variant, or do you think we're doing enough right now? Should we just stay the course right now? The reason I wanted to ask you this is because Kingston is like ground zero, and it's only 2 hours away, and it's downright scary. This was in this morning's Kingston Whig Standard. I'm quoting here. I'm just reading it, and I can't help but wonder if this is happening, 2 hours down the 401, how long before it arrives here, okay? Quote, restaurants and bars will have to stop serving food at 10 p.m., alcohol by 9 p.m. as of Monday under a new week-long class order issued by Kingston, Frontenac, Lennox, Addington Public Health, KFLA. All patrons will have to be seated to be served. Maximum 4 people can sit at a table. Live music and dancing are prohibited. Music must be at a low enough volume to ensure normal conversation. So no live music, no dancing, no loud music. Failing to comply can result in a $5,000 a day fine. Another story from this morning's Whig down in Kingston. Omicron variant will replace Delta as the dominant COVID-19 strain in the region by next week, local experts say, if it hasn't already. The Kingston Health Sciences Center says it has the highest number of intensive care COVID-19 patients in the province, and then the public broadcaster reports, unlike the spring, when the Kingston Health Sciences Center took in 142 COVID-19 patients from the Toronto area, it has had to begin sending some of its own patients out of the city. Over the weekend, 2 patients were sent to hospitals in Belleville and Brockville. Hospital staff also stretched thin due to seasonal demands as well as the usual work of running a hospital. So, that's like 2 hours from here. So I asked Dr. Manuel this morning, senior scientist, Ottawa Hospital, is that going to happen here in Ottawa? Is that going to happen here in Ottawa?
It will happen within days, if not a week or two. We're now facing basically a super transmissible variant, much more transmissible than Delta, which is in itself much more transmissible than previous variants.
Okay, much more transmissible than Delta and previous variants. So Kingston, look at what they're doing. New health restrictions. No late night drinking, dancing, singing, no loud music, limits in restaurants, these kinds of things, right? So it would be naive to think there won't come a time when our health officials will be contemplating the same kind of thing here. So what do you think, folks? What do you think? Gosh, it's deja vu. Are you willing to accept another round of public health restrictions if that's what it takes to control the spread of Omicron? Trevor, Barhaven. Trevor, good morning, Trevor.
Good morning, Rob. I think we need to stay the course.
Okay.
We got to understand that this pandemic, it's not a city of Ottawa, it's not a province of Ontario pandemic. This is a global pandemic. We got to start getting vaccines out to every person in the world. Canada has, and the rich countries are hoarding the vaccines. Again, this is a variant that has grown in another country, which is around the globe from where I live. And I'm expected to change the way that we're supposed to live after we've gone and got vaccinated. My daughter's school has been closed for 2 weeks because she was a high-risk contact to another child outside at recess. We got to get the whole world here. The government hasn't stepped up. Justin Trudeau, people need to get their booster shot right now. Our vaccines were not even available. So the government isn't, they say they're trying to protect us. At the same time, they're not being responsible, and we're the ones that are paying the consequences of it. We need to stay the course. We need to continue to live with this virus. Even what they're saying in Kingston, they're going to put in all these restrictions on Monday. Okay, well, if it's that much out of control, why isn't it being done immediately?
Yeah, why would you give them another weekend to have their loud music and their live bands and their dancing?
Yeah, let Frontenac come in and play 2 home games.
Yeah. Okay. Good point. Yeah, good point. Thank you, Trevor. Thank you. I know where you stand. 750-1310. Jamie in Ottawa. Jamie.
Hi. I'm absolutely against going back to where we were months ago. And in fact, this never should have happened. All we're doing is prolonging the inevitable.
Okay.
We never should have had lockdowns. People are going to continue to get sick until we build up herd immunity. We need to stop focusing on case counts. Case counts are absolutely irrelevant. In Ottawa right now, there's 6 people in
No,
hospital.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say they're.
People with ICU.
I'm sorry, I wouldn't say they're absolutely irrelevant.
Getting sick and being hospitalized,
right.
It doesn't matter. There's 6 people in hospital right now.
There are 6 people in the hospital right now. There's nobody in ICU. Jamie, I know the numbers. I know the numbers, Jamie.
Okay, and it's been like this for months and months and months.
Yes,
and
but now, Jamie, that was with an R number. I'm sure we're all familiar with these terms now. That with an R number close to 1, this one has an R number of 4, which is like a total game changer.
Great. So if we had 10,000 cases tomorrow and most of them were asymptomatic.
No, think of going from zero. Think of going from 0 to 1 million cases in 60 days, Jamie.
Okay. And how many people are going to end up in hospital?
Well, how many people are going to end up in the hospital? Right now we have 6 with maybe 1,000 cases. So how many is it going to be with 1 million cases?
Okay. You mean the whole city of Ottawa is going to have COVID tomorrow? We have 1 million.
No, within 2 months. Within 2 months. We had 1 million cases. If we had 1 million cases,
it's not going to happen. It's just pure fear mongering. I'm sick and tired of it. I'm tired of it.
Oh, look, we're all tired of it, Jamie.
We've got to stop.
You're not terminally unique because you're tired of it, my friend.
We need to let the virus run its natural course.
Right.
People are going to get sick. Unfortunately, some will die who have pre-existing conditions. We just need to let it run its course. And you know what? The vaccines are not working. Over 50% of the cases.
What do you mean the vaccines are not working? What do you mean the vaccines are not? What do you mean they're not working? How come we don't have elderly people dropping dead by the hundreds in long-term care, Jamie? What do you mean they're not working? When we had no vaccines, this bug would get into a long-term care home and rip through there. 2 dozen, 3 dozen people dead.
Okay, so people that have
Okay. Why isn't that happening now, Jamie? Why isn't that happening now, Jamie?
Probably because we have better restrictions. We're not allowing people
better restrictions. Okay. All right. Dave, New Edinburgh. Dave.
Hi, Rob.
Yeah, Dave. Should we? I'm not even saying that we should go back to this. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here. Are you willing to accept another round of public health restrictions if that's what it takes to control the spread of the Omicron variant?
Well, I'm going to put my answer like as a no because I do think there should be some restrictions, but those restrictions would have to start at the top. And by that I mean, first thing you'd have to do is close down the hockey arenas.
Yeah.
Put the restriction on the big box stores to start with.
Okay.
And then work your way down. Because that wasn't mentioned at all about, the Kingston thing. It was just not serving alcohol after 9 or not dancing or whatever. But, I mean, you're packing, say, $20,000, 20,000 people into a hockey arena, but you're going to restrict, the number of people in a very small venue.
Right.
That's why I'm saying you should start at the top by starting with those things and then work your way down. Last time it was they were sort of picking on the small businesses and letting the big box stores kind of, cram in as many people as they wanted to.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I think, but I know they're not going to do that. So that's why I wanted to put my answer as a no, because I just
because you don't trust them to do it the right way, in your opinion.
No, and
right.
It's because we went through this thing with the boxers last year, and there was favoritism shown towards them, and now it's like they're concerned about business and the economy, so that's why they haven't mentioned these things yet that I mentioned, and we're going to the same thing that we're going through the timing-wise as last Christmas, where as soon as we get to Christmas Eve, they're going to start locking things down because nobody needs to be anywhere. So I just see a carbon copy thing happening, but as I say, I'd like to see them start.
Gotcha, Dave. All right. Thank you, Dave. Thank you. The news is coming up. It's halftime, Talkback Hour. Are you willing to accept a new round of public health restrictions if that's what it takes to contain the Omicron variant? It's a hot question today. I want your answer after the news on City News.
News in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, December 14th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 0. It's 1 degree in Smiths Falls, and here's what's making news this hour. There is a protest at the Chelsea office of a Quebec MNA this afternoon. People upset with the removal of a teacher from the classroom because she violated Quebec Law 21 that bans religious symbols, and this teacher wears a hijab. While Quebec's premier says she shouldn't have been hired in the first place because of that law, parents and others argue the law is unconstitutional. Latest COVID numbers from the province show 1,429 more cases today. 120 of them are in Ottawa, 27 in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, 11 in Eastern Ontario, 6 more cases today in Renfrew. 162 people are currently in ICU. Now, 131 of them are not fully vaccinated or have an unknown vaccination status. 31 who are in the ICU are fully vaccinated. Ottawa Public Health has tweeted that all COVID-19 vaccine appointments for everyone 12 and older are now booked. The unit apologizing for any inconvenience. In fact, they're working to add more appointments that could happen later today. It does suggest pharmacies in Ottawa, some of them, continue to offer vaccines to those who are eligible. We may need to bring in more restrictions to fight the Omicron variant of COVID-19. That word from a local epidemiologist who says it's only a matter of time before the variant takes hold in the capital. We'll have more on this story for you coming up at 11 o'clock. City News Time, 10:32. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
It's time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Are you willing to accept another round of public health restrictions if that's what it takes to control the spread of the Omicron variant? Yeah, I have to ask you that today. I wish I didn't have to ask you that today, but I feel that I do. We talked about what's going on in Kingston. Then there's the UK. It's been all over the news that a person infected with Omicron has died. The Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, has had to impose restrictions again. He's facing a rebellion from his MPs. He's calling in the army to help with the booster shot program. It's just not going well for Boris. And then you have a headline like this: Omicron COVID could overwhelm National Health Service even if less severe. Health Minister says. The Health Minister in the UK is Sajid Javid. And he said, even if Omicron turns out to be less severe overall than the Delta variant, it's about the sheer number of cases that will put the health service under severe strain. It's math, people. It's math. It's just basic math. This was Boris Johnson this week in a nationally televised address to the people of the United Kingdom.
No one should be in any doubt there is a tidal wave of Omicron coming. And I'm afraid it is now clear that 2 doses of vaccine are simply not enough to give the level of protection we all need. But the good news is that our scientists are confident that with a 3rd dose, a booster dose, we can all bring our level of protection back up.
Okay, that's good. Get your booster, okay? The phenomenal spread of Omicron was unlike anything previously seen in this pandemic, Javid said. That's in The Guardian this morning. Many people are claiming this is less severe, but let's see. Let's establish the facts. Even if it is less severe, a smaller percentage of infected people experiencing severe disease is still a huge number if put against a large number of infections. And this is how Dr. Manuel explained it to us this morning in the Ottawa example.
Say 20 cases of Omicron today in Ottawa. In a week, that's going to be doubled and doubled again. So 20, 40, 80 in a week. And then a week later, it's doubled and doubled again. Say it's 3.5 days, So 80, that's 160, 163, 320. And so we get, now we're into in Ottawa, tens of thousands of people being infected by the
tens of thousands
January.
By January. Tens of thousands, he said. Tens of thousands in Ottawa. All right. And, this is in the Mirror out of the UK this morning, okay? Listen, this may be of interest to you because I was speculating about this just a couple of weeks ago. Remember what I was asking? I wonder if there's going to come a time when fully vaccinated means 3 doses? Listen to this. UK. People will no longer be classified as fully vaccinated unless they have had 2 main doses and a booster once every adult that has had a reasonable amount of time to get jabbed. Figures showed infections have increased by 54,661 in one day in the United Kingdom. The news comes as the Omicron variant looks to become the dominant strain of coronavirus in London by tomorrow. Just weeks after it was first detected in the United Kingdom. Weeks. From 0 to 54,000 cases in a day. In a day. Right? Exponential growth. Rodney, Ottawa. Good morning, Rodney. Thank you for waiting. You're on City News.
All right.
Are you willing to accept another round of public health restrictions if that's what it takes to control the Omicron variant?
Hey, I am, but is everybody else?
Well, obviously not.
That could be the big question, and I don't know how you work with all your patients with some of the people that sort of call in. So, and the caller before, he mentioned last year. Well, let's look at what was happening last year, and Doug Ford had a decision to make, and it was a very hard decision to make.
Yes.
It was a no-win decision.
Right.
It was a no-win answer, and hey, I'm just going to make a prediction that this year it won't be Doug Ford making the decision and the announcement. It'll be the health minister, somebody else, And then, it's just the unfortunate thing, that people won't follow the logical, common sense guidelines.
Right.
I'm going to think of somebody I spoke to on the weekend. In the last couple of years, has he been out to a restaurant? No. He told me he was actually brave enough a couple of times to have takeout delivered.
Okay.
And then, there's all the people that are waiting for surgeries that are getting worse. There's people with mobility issues that when they wake up in the middle of the night to use the washroom, they're in pain. They limp to the washroom. They struggle to lay down in bed again. They have difficulty walking up and down stairs. There's a lot of people that just aren't thinking of everybody else, and something has to be done sooner than later.
Sooner rather than later. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Do we have the case number for today? I didn't see that yet, David. Find that for me. Okay. And all things in perspective, I am totally aware of what the situation is in the hospitals right now. We have 6 people with COVID at the Ottawa hospitals. 6, and nobody in ICU. I know that. You don't have to point that out. Gloria in Canada. Gloria, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Hi,
Rob.
Gloria.
Yes, I'm certainly I'm ready to, I always have been.
Okay.
Stay at home. I do not want to be responsible for infecting somebody's little innocent baby or a person who is fighting some other insidious disease. I just don't want to do that. So I shop on a 2 to 3 week basis. I stock up whenever I can. I do whatever I can. My selfish needs are just my own. But there's a lot of selfish people out there. And it's so sad. Save a life, for goodness sakes. Please, people, those who have, and I do have a neighbor who quite openly told me they have not been vaccinated, and they probably never will. But please, if God is on your side, he's given us a weapon to fight this terrible disease. So please, let's use what we've been given. Let's try to save more lives instead of hurting people unnecessarily. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you, Gloria. Thank you for your call. Manny in Ottawa, you're on City News. Manny.
Good morning, Rob.
Morning, Manny. Good to hear from you, Manny.
Yeah, thank you, buddy. I think you're one of the best in Canada, and you do a great job.
Oh, thank you.
But I think, but you know what?
Yeah.
The last caller and everyone else. But Rob, let me give you some facts. The Omicron has been in the UK for a long time. It's been its dominant strain. In the UK, since June or at least July, they've had over 50,000 cases per day, approximately. I'm giving an average, but it's about 50,000, 10 times more than Canada. Its deaths are 52, just twice what Canada's is, and it has twice the population, and we haven't had the strain. The Omicron strain is a godsend. I mean, you look at South Africa, where it started. No one looks at the facts. Everyone is all fear and control, and it's just disturbing. I mean, South Africa has 60 million people. 22 people died on December 9th, and it has over 20,000 cases. South Africa and the United Kingdom are now reaching its peaks as it had before, but the deaths and hospitalization are so much less. They're almost minuscule. In United Kingdom, the hospitalization reached as high as 5,000 at one time. It's at about 600. The United Kingdom's got 68 million people, and it's got less people in hospitals than we do in Canada. And so, we've got to step back. Rob, the Omicron is a godsend, and let me explain why.
All right.
It's like a natural vaccine. What it does, it's going to infect everybody, very mild conditions. Hospitalizations are very low, all you have to do is Google and find out what's happening. I
do a lot of Googling, Manny. Don't you?
I know you do.
Worry.
You're one of the best. And I'm just simply saying, if you Google the cases in the hospitalization in the UK, the Prime Minister's in trouble. He's trying to save his job, and he's using the Omicron to kind of divert.
Okay.
That's just political.
It's kind of a wag the dog. You think it's a wag the dog kind of thing, Manny?
Absolutely.
Oh, really?
If you
Okay.
Look at
All
the
right.
evidence. You even look at Canada. We had one death in Ontario yesterday of this virus. Ontario loses 350 people every day. We have to stop destroying society. I know more people that have committed suicide. I know more people that have mental depression, that have changed their lives, destroyed marriages, much more than has impacted. Omicron is here. It's like, Rob, we know that
I got you, Manny. I got you. Tight on time. Some very compelling point. Great counter argument. Really, and boy, oh boy, we're all tied up, eh? Really, I'm keeping track of what everybody is saying. It's split right down the middle, which is always an interesting thing to see. Ian Brockville. Ian, good morning, Ian.
Good morning, Rob. My answer is yes, and I'll explain why quite quickly. Although every part of my being wants to agree and say no. this is kind of all comes down to something that I've been researching for the past couple weeks now, which we'll talk about on Friday, and that is a nurse, a very good friend of mine who works at the Kingston General Hospital. And much like that lady in Quebec who went through that issue with what we've been discussing this morning, sometimes we don't notice it until it affects us directly. And as much as I hear it, you're very well at exclaiming it when we talk about nurses in hospitals. When you sit down and you have a discussion with a nurse who cares the way this one does, and she tells you some of the things that I've never heard before in my life of what she sees when we don't take care of our hospitals, it's bloody scary. Bloody scary, so you got no choice but to just say yes.
Okay, all right, Ian, thank you. Yeah, okay, we'll be back. We'll do about another 10 minutes of calls. Are you willing to accept another round of public health restrictions if that's what it takes to control the spread of Omicron? Talkback Hour, Rob Snow Show, City News.
My name is Pamela Caillou. I'm a local artist. I'm Métis, and the heritage derives from Algonquin and Huron background. That comes from way, way back from the 1600s. I was trained in school classically, like we studied the masters like Picasso, Michelangelo, Van Gogh, and so you'd have to say it's quite different, my style. What I've done is taken the skills that were taught to me by traditional painting and incorporated that with the Indigenous heritage. My art pieces incorporate the energy and spirit of the Mother Earth in pretty much every single one of them, because I want people to realize, even though we might think we are the masters of the domain here on the planet, that is not the case. It's the Mother Earth that's providing a balance and our causes to live and whatnot. And it's just to always see her and remember her and respect her. Well, I try to keep my style different because there are like a handful of Canadian artists that are really well known, like Norval Morrisseau and whatnot, but it's been done. So I kind of want to stay away from the pack, and that's what makes my artwork a little more unique. But at the same time, if you're looking at it, you do know it's Indigenous and you do know it's the woodland style. I usually start by coming up with an idea, which would be, let's say, 4 days. Well, it depends what's inspiring me at the time. It could be a lot of trees, it could be water, it could be the medicine wheel. I would choose a subject and try to really incorporate what it is I want people to see from that. So then from there, I would have sketchbooks and I do little sketches of everything because the canvas is expensive. So you don't want to start something and have to throw it away. And then from there, I go on to the bigger piece on the canvas. Once I have on my sketches the direction I want to take my artwork in. I chose a lot of vibrant colors for the pieces because if somebody is willing to make the commitment to have my piece of work in their home, I would actually like them to come home after a long, hard day, and some days aren't so great, to look at something that's very joyful.
On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Are you willing to accept another round of public health restrictions if that's what it takes to control the spread of the Omicron variant? Case count Ontario-wide today, 1,429, 120 in Ottawa, 6 in Renfrew. 27, Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, Eastern Ontario Health Unit 11, 5 fatal cases. Test positivity rate, 6.6%, 33,000 tests. Boy, David used to write that down every day religiously. Test positivity rate, I didn't pay much attention to it because it was about 2% for the longest time. Which, and if I'm getting this wrong, David, smack me up the side of the head and feel free to do so.
You're right so far.
Which is basically, if I go to get a test, I guess I have a 98% chance that it's coming back negative, right? 2-point-something% of the test would be positive, test positivity rate. Now it's 6.6%. 6.6%. That's a high number. I don't know if I've ever seen it that high before. A month ago, November 14th, the case counts for Ottawa or for Ontario were 640. Yesterday they were 1,270. Today 1,429. So up more than 100%. 6 people in the hospital in Ottawa, none in ICU. Nicola in Lorneal. Nicola.
Yes, hello. Well, I agree with not with the last caller, but the one before who thinks that this is, I wouldn't say it's a blessing, but I think it's more like a flu, and we're getting crazy about this.
Getting crazy,
I hope they're not going to postpone surgeries again and cut down the
They're
number.
doing that in other places already in Ontario.
Yeah. And the booster, I don't think it's maybe the greatest thing, but my husband had a terrible reaction to it, and he had to go to the hospital, and he had the heartbeat really, really fast, and they had to shock his heart. And I've heard that the young men have this heart problem sometimes, but I've never heard the older men. So
I don't know.
No, I'm getting mine today, but I'm a little apprehensive here. It's a Moderna. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good luck with that. I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure. It'll be
Okay.
fine,
Thank you. Bye.
All the best. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Sure. Where she? I'm going to put her down with not being in favor of the restrictions. That's what I took away with Joe in Ottawa. Joe.
Yes.
Yeah. Good morning, Joe. It's good to hear from you. Are you willing to accept another round of public health restrictions if that's what it takes to control the spread of Omicron?
No, I am not. And your last caller and a caller 2 before her basically stole my thunder.
Okay.
Because the cases in the south of Africa, like the number of deaths and hospitalizations is so low that it seems more like a flu if we're getting the numbers reported to us correctly. But nothing as serious as the media is making it out to be anyways.
Okay. You think it's media-driven hysteria? Is that what you think it is?
Yeah, I think it's because it's a new virus and everybody's freaking out about it. And, news is money, so you guys have to...
But how do you think Doug Ford or Mr. Legault or any of them, how do you think they're going to react if, say it's 1,400 cases today? What if in 2 weeks from now it's 5,000 cases or 6,000 cases or 7,000 cases or something like that?
Well, if there's 7,000 cases, let's say, and you have, a handful of people in the hospital, then it would be...
Well, right now we have a handful of people in the hospital. What if we had 40 people in the hospital? Would that be okay? Or 50 of them? What if we had 50 of them in the hospital? Would that be okay? And what if 10 of them died? Is that okay? As long as it's not you, Joe. As long as it's not you, I guess it's okay. Is that right, Joe?
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that from the numbers that we're seeing in the places that are hardest...
Yeah, the numbers that we're seeing now.
These are numbers like you see with the worst case of a flu we've had since...
Joe, I'm just playing devil's advocate here, Joe. When did we learn about Omicron? 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago, right?
Almost a month now.
No, 2 weeks ago, Joe. It was 2 weeks ago. It was like 2.5 weeks ago, right?
Uh-huh.
So it's gone from that to within days it's going to be the dominant strain of coronavirus in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks. So what's it going to be like in another 2 weeks, and then another 2 weeks, and then another 2 weeks?
Well, like I said,
exponential.
According to the numbers, if you get Omicron and it's like a flu that just keeps you...
Yeah, but what if the number is really big, Joe? That's what you have to wrap your head around, Joe.
No, because if you go with these what ifs...
Okay, what ifs. What ifs. Free your mind, Joe, and the rest will follow. Gordon in Bell's Corners. Gordon. Yeah, Gordon. On public health restrictions, what if we have to go through another round of public health restrictions? What would be your...
I would not support that.
Okay.
I actually think the
Omicron might be the equivalent to the 1920 Spanish flu endemic variant. Equivalent. Most viruses, when they first come out, are virulent, but as they vary, they become more widespread but less severe. And in 1918, the Spanish flu killed millions and millions of people around the world. 2 years later, the variant came out that was very widespread, but it didn't kill a lot of people. It petered out. And I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe Omicron's showing some of those symptoms. It spreads like wildfire, but at the moment does not appear to be as severe as the Alpha or the Delta variants.
Okay,
so I don't support it.
All right, you don't support it. Okay, we'll see where it goes. Right? Marie in the West End. Marie, good morning. You're on City News.
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people, I wish we didn't have to, but
Right.
It looks like we probably will go into restrictions, and we have to, because how else are we going to get rid of this? And the people out there that will not or think that it's an invasion or whatever of their bodies, think about your family and friends around you. I hate needles. I'm probably the worst one on the planet, but you know what? I went and I did it. And I think everybody should follow suit and do that. I'll give you an example, if I may. I go to a church where we were told that when people come in to go to church, we don't ask them if they're vaccinated, which I think the Ford government had said a few weeks back that you do this, right? Because they want people to keep coming to church.
Yeah.
How fair is that to the people that are sitting in my church that are fully vaccinated, and then you have these ones that say, oh, great, I can come because I don't have to do it. I support it 100%. Whatever the government, if we have to go to restrictions, we go to restrictions. I just want this thing gone, and I want my family and friends to be safe.
All right, thank you, Marie. Take this one. It's Dan and Greeley. Good morning, Dan. You're on City News.
Morning, Rob.
What do you think about the idea of more restrictions coming back?
Absolutely, they should stay in place. And to be honest with you, I think people are being naive and maybe frightened from this. But I think we should go a lot further and have some kind of complete shutdown, everything closed completely.
Oh, really?
Within limits to keep the economy going. But it has to go a lot further than what it is. I think it's inevitable that it's going to happen anyway.
You think we're going back to have another lockdown, like a 2020 lockdown?
We're much more than a lockdown. Like, close everything. Like, we got to get ahead of this thing because it's inevitable. It's going to happen anyway.
All right. Okay. I'm going to take one more call on that, and then that will be that. And I have it all tied up here, actually. So this will be the tiebreaker. You, Theodore, get to decide this entire hour and what we're going to do here. Theodore?
Well, I say do what's needed for the best interest of everybody involved.
Okay.
I mean, for the greater public good.
Okay.
Although on an individual basis, speaking for myself alone, it hasn't really affected me all that much, other than having to get a couple extra shots, getting some extra shots.
Right.
But then I'm on ODSP, and I already get a shot for schizophrenia.
Okay.
So it's a monthly thing. So getting this shot for COVID and the
not a big deal for you. Not a big deal for you.
No,
all right.
It's not. I don't see what the really big thing. It's just a needle.
All right. Thanks, Theodore. All the best to you, sir. Thank you. Yep. Bye-bye. Thank you for all your calls. That was it was a hot hour. It's a passionate topic, of course, and it's probably one that's going to come up again, I suspect, as we work our way through this whole thing once more. Back right after the 11 o'clock news with Michael Taube, syndicated columnist. Much to discuss with our good friend Michael here on City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 1011 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, December 14th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 0. In Smiths Falls, 1 degree. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. A protest over Quebec Bill 21 is being held at the office of Chelsea area MNA Robert Boussier. The protesters are showing displeasure with the bill in Quebec that bans people in position of authority from wearing religious symbols at work. A grade 3 teacher in Chelsea reassigned outside the classroom because she was wearing a hijab. Quebec's premier says the teacher should just never have been hired in the first place because of that law, and the Prime Minister has not ruled out federal intervention in the case. The Canadian Civil Liberties Association says this one is not unique.
She's a real person who loves these kids, and the kids obviously love her, and the community obviously loves her as a teacher. But she's one, and there are many others like her who have been harmed for the last year and a half since Bill 21 became law. And most of the people who have been affected by the law are Muslim women.
Noah Mendelson is the director of equality with that group and says they're currently appealing a case against Bill 21 in Quebec Superior Court. City News Time, 11:02. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
We're in good shape for today with sun and cloud, but we're under a special weather statement for Wednesday afternoon. There is a potential for some freezing rain around the Ottawa area. High today, +1, -7 for the low, 1 for the high tomorrow. That's the high today, +1.
And right now in Ottawa, it's 0. In Smiths Falls, it's 1 degree. The province says there are 1,429 new cases of COVID-19 today and 5 more deaths. 120 of these cases are in Ottawa, 27 in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, 11 in Eastern Ontario, and 6 in the Renfrew County Health Unit. The number of positive cases from 33,400 tests completed is now up to 6.6%. Now, the spread of the Omicron variant may lead to new restrictions in Ottawa. One local epidemiologist says we may need to take more drastic measures against this new strain of COVID-19. Here's City News reporter Chris Curries.
We're a couple days away, maybe a week or two, from Kingston's Omicron situation playing out right here in Ottawa. And a senior scientist with the Ottawa Hospital says it's important that if it gets to that point, that schools are the last to close.
When I see these big events with thousands of people not wearing masks, and then if we're having a discussion about whether schools can be closed, I just find that heartbreaking.
Dr. Doug Manuel tells City News that while it likely won't come to that, he has a clear message to everyone.
We need to be reducing our contact now.
Chris Curries, City News.
Now, Pfizer says it has an experimental COVID-19 pill. It appears effective against the Omicron variant. Jennifer King tells us this morning Pfizer says another large study confirms the pill's promising early results.
The company says the drug reduced COVID-19 hospitalizations and deaths by about 89% among high-risk adults when taken shortly after initial symptoms. Among healthier and vaccinated adults, the data was mixed, with a 70% reduction in hospitalizations, but the drug failed a goal of alleviating symptoms for 4 days during and after treatment. Across both studies, patients had a 10-fold decrease in virus levels compared with those taking a placebo.
Now, Pfizer's data could help pressure regulators of the drug's benefit after Merck disclosed smaller than expected benefits for its drug in its final testing. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Strong voice.
Strong opinions.
Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Strong opinions. You ain't heard nothing yet. Michael Taube is back with us. You read him in the National Post, Looney Politics, Troy Media, former speechwriter for Stephen Harper, with us every week. Good morning, Michael.
Hey, Rob. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good. Thank you.
I wish I could find a strong Federalist leader who would stand up to the big bully in Quebec. They're also weak-kneed. It's a rather pathetic display, actually. I've been screaming bloody heck about Bill 21 for 2 years.
Yeah.
I remain as sickened as ever by these weak-kneed federal leaders we have here in Ottawa. And it's not just Mr. Trudeau, it's all of them. Okay, Mr. O'Toole says, oh, it's a provincial matter. Mr. Singh, who wouldn't be able to teach in a school in Chelsea, Quebec either. Really?
True.
What do you think about their silence on this, Bill 21?
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm not obviously going to defend anybody for it. We know why it's happening, because putting aside whatever your listeners' feelings are on Quebec, whether they're positive, negative, or in between, we know that Quebec, up until very, very recently, has played an important political role, especially in federal politics and in federal elections. At one point, if you didn't do well in Quebec, well, you didn't form the next government. I mean, that has changed, obviously, in the past few elections. So Quebec's importance is not quite the same anymore. You can now look towards, well, provinces like Ontario, BC, and others, which are now, Ontario's always played a major role, but there are others that obviously factor into the equation. However, look, I mean, obviously, many federal leaders have obviously played nice with Quebec, I guess to say it nicely, and have tried to help or encourage things, build new relationships or stronger relationships. My old friend and boss, Stephen Harper, certainly tried. But again, the motive was to build conservative support in Quebec, which had been lost long since the days of Brian Mulroney. Justin Trudeau, the current prime minister, has also done the same thing as well, trying to, in his case, maintain or rebuild lost Liberal support in Quebec. And he basically gave Quebec more distinct notions, to the point where now, when you look at the language that Premier Francois Legault uses, they basically claim that they're a country within a country. And because of all that, you know, we've gone past the distinct society debates and discussions we had in the 80s and 90s to having basically, you know, a province that believes it's completely separate from everything else.
It has to be, we're nation to nation now. We're nation to nation now.
Exactly. Yeah. So in the end, you're absolutely right to say that at least one of the Federalist leaders, either on the right or the left, should do something that's more distinctive, or at least distinguishes themselves from the others. But again, the safest position and the softest landing is to say, well, it's a provincial matter, which is why Erin O'Toole is staying out of it. And Prime Minister Justin Trudeau recently announced that he's staying out of it for now. But is it good leadership? Is it strong leadership? Absolutely not. Bill 21, which I actually am going to be covering in my Looney Politics column, which will run in the next couple of days, I'm not pleased with the way things are being handled with it at all. And I think a lot of Canadians now, looking at the issue, are really frustrated that there isn't at least one federal leader that stands up to it, because there really should be someone.
I get it that it's a political calculation for them. I don't think their math is adding up. Like I think about Mr. Singh. The New Democrats, since the loss of Jack Layton, since the Orange Wave, they've been nowhere in Quebec, okay?
No.
They have one seat. They have one Quebec MP. One.
Exactly.
Mr. Bulleries, right? He used to be a communist. But and I have David doing a Google search right now. In Quebec, the Conservatives won 10 seats, okay?
Yeah, which is the most we've had in several elections, actually.
Right, which is a good result for the Conservatives.
Sadly,
so you're willing to be cowards in the face of the bully Legault and Bill 21 and the Nationalists in Quebec to win 10 seats, or in the New Democrats' case, 1 seat, and you're gonna let all of those people down elsewhere in Canada, like in Brampton and Peel and in Surrey and in Richmond and in
I'm
all
with
these
you.
communities.
I know what you're saying.
Like it's
I understand. I get it.
It's so. What kind of political calculation is that? Like, what kind of math? That must be discovery math. That must
New
be
math. New math. You know that. No, I know what you're saying. Look, I understand. But look, you also have to think realistically. Obviously, the Conservatives, the NDP, and others obviously want to increase their tally. So the Conservatives are not trying to protect 10 seats in the NDP one. They're trying to grow each one. That's obvious. But unfortunately, you're right. When you do something like that, you basically have to, placate one of the problems is, or treat them differently, which is always what in our union or our imperfect union, a lot of provinces get very frustrated with, and that's why we've seen Western alienation and various other movements spring up.
Yeah.
Because when it looks like a federal government is playing games or trying to, act buddy-buddy, shall we say, with one of the provinces, which is usually Quebec, it just looks bad overall. So, look, I agree with you. You're completely right on this point, and anyone else who's frustrated is also completely right. The problem is that, as I will write in my piece, as others have pointed out too, it's just that when it comes to Quebec, there's a lot of gamesmanship in politics. It's wrong, but it's existed for decades.
Okay. Ontario is now the only province yet to sign on to Mr. Trudeau's $10 a day childcare program. You think that a deal is eventually going to get done here between Ford and Trudeau on childcare?
Yeah, unfortunately, I do. I mean, I understand. Okay. Well, I understand why Ford's holding out. He's making the argument that the other provinces have said as well, that $10 a day per family for childcare is just not enough. I mean, when you look at what Justin Trudeau proposed, it was basically the entire amount that's allotted for, now back to Quebec again, Quebec daycare. So in the end, is that really helping a great deal? So I understand why Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, is standing back from it and is obviously pushing back from it. I understand why other provinces also push back for a period of time, although, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and others eventually signed up to it. Again, I don't think there's anything wrong with Doug Ford trying to, quote unquote, he's not holding it up, but quote unquote, basically negotiate a better deal for himself, or at least come out looking a bit stronger in an issue where the federal government or the overwhelming piece of the state is going to control everything. On the other hand, when everybody else has basically signed on, at some point, Doug Ford's going to have to sign on too. So I don't blame him for what he's doing. It's really not a big deal one way or the other. But on the other hand, you also have to be realistic about the $10 a day for some families is important to buy more groceries, diapers, various other things. In the end, even if the amount is extremely small, which make no mistake, it's still important to families. And, Doug Ford, by nature, is both a conservative and a populist. He knows it has to be done. He just wants to be the last one standing, which isn't a horrible thing to do. Yeah. But in the end, ultimately, I'm not going to say fall in line, but he'll sign on too.
Okay. Elon Musk is Time Magazine's Person of the Year. They passed over again. I passed over again.
Me too. I'm always passed over. It's weird.
He's the richest individual in the world. He has built this incredible fortune, this incredible company. He wants to send people to Mars. I don't want to go to Mars. Mars is like a hellscape. I don't know why anybody would want to go to Mars, but nevertheless, some people do want to go to Mars. But Tesla, the success is no question about the success, and he was a success before Tesla, with PayPal and whatever. Very controversial, into crypto, provocative on Twitter. What do you think of the decision? Elon Musk, Time Magazine's Person of the Year.
Yeah, I mean, he is a very eccentric fellow. There's no question about that. And I think you're right. I think because Jack Ma of Alibaba had actually dropped in his total net worth, I think now Musk is number one. You're absolutely right, or at least according to Forbes, I think. I'm not sitting in front of it. Regardless, he's one of the wealthiest wealthiest people in the world, to be fair. You're right. He is an unusual sort, but he's been involved in many great companies. Tesla, obviously, most people know. PayPal was certainly one of his endeavors that he went in with a few others. I mean, obviously, William Shatner would give him a pretty huge vote of confidence after he did the trip to Mars, which I agree with you, doesn't necessarily appeal to me at this stage. But if people are willing to spend their own money and they want to take the trip, that's their right, obviously. But again, I think that basically people like that, who we would regard as eccentric geniuses, they are the true risk takers. They are the ones who are willing to, look at flights of fancy, so to speak, look at things that seem impossible to others, and they always believe that, no, it's not impossible. There is a way to do it. And in cases they spend a lot of their own money and other people's money to make these quote-unquote dreams happen, and sometimes those dreams become a reality. So whether you love Elon Musk or you hate Elon Musk or you're somewhere in the middle, there's no denying the man is an incredible success. So if there is going to be a Person of the Year for Time magazine, especially this year, Elon Musk seems like a good choice.
Yeah, he's got a real libertarian bent to him as well.
He does. He does. Yeah, very much like Jeff Bezos is very similar to him.
A lot of those big tech guys do. Zuckerberg's the same way.
Yes, he does.
Yeah. Okay. I don't watch, as I used to watch a lot of Fox News. I don't watch a lot of Fox News anymore. They've, that old line, Fonzie jumped the shark. That's like a lot of people on Fox News. I'm just waiting, but I always liked and admired Chris Wallace. He, straight shooter, right down the middle, which is it's unusual for Fox. They had a couple of guys like Shepard Smith was one of those. He went over to CNBC now. But anyway, just Sunday comes along, and there's Chris Wallace. Oh, by the way, this is my last Fox News Sunday, like one of the Sunday political talk shows. I'm leaving to go to CNN Plus, like not even CNN, but like you're going to CNN Plus? Like you're leaving, whatever you think of Fox News, huge viewership, okay? And there's a big gaping hole in the lineup over there at CNN, like, hello, Chris Cuomo, 9 o'clock. So I don't know. What did you think of that move? It seems like maybe he just wants to get out of Fox, but it seems like a step down to me.
It's a huge step down. I was floored in the sense that no one saw this coming. There were no rumors circulating about it. All of a sudden, he announces it on Fox News Sunday. This is my last show, and I think he spends about roughly a minute and a half just saying his farewells and what he plans to do in the future. And then, what was it, about 4 or 5 hours later, maybe a little longer, all of a sudden the press release comes out that he's going to be moving to CNN Plus, which is their streaming service, which is, I believe, going to be launched in early next year. But it's an enormous step down, as you correctly pointed out. Fox News is the most popular and most well-watched cable news network. Whether people love it or hate it, there are an enormous amount of viewers for it. CNN has been down and middling in the third, fourth place ratio for quite a number of years, with the exception of a little bit of a jump in the first quarter of this year, not long after Donald Trump lost the, in 2020 to Joe Biden. CNN had a bit of a bounce. They got their numbers back up, but then that dropped and they started to plummet. And everybody in the top 10 of, cable shows watched on cable news in terms of most viewership, I don't think there was a CNN show in the last top 10 which is consistent from, several years past. No, CNN is a losing enterprise. I'm really stunned that Chris Wallace would take that position. Clearly, he wanted to get out of Fox News, which is what you alluded to, and I think that's certainly 100%. We can't argue that. What his motive was is beyond me. Maybe he didn't like the direction that Fox News had taken lately, although Fox News now is so much different than other smaller stations on the right, like Newsmax TV, for example.
Right.
I think Fox News is actually looking more sensible as of late on the right than anything. I still like Fox News. I still watch it a fair bit, but I'm sure you do the same thing, Rob. I balance out what I want to watch, and if I find things that I just don't agree with, I either ignore them or I switch the channel, or I skip certain hosts altogether who I just find are, just thinking on a level which just seems too ridiculous at times. But by and large, I do like Fox News, and I'm still more than willing to watch it. But yeah, I mean, I think.
All right, can I sign you up for CNN Plus? Can I sign you up for CNN?
I have no interest in it. Zero. I mean, it's nothing against Chris Wallace, who is fine. Wallace has said very briefly that he has voted both for Republicans and Democrats in his life. That was from a few years ago. I mean, I'm if he's happy there, it's his choice. But I think it's a bad decision, and no, I ain't watching.
All right. Thanks, Michael. Speak soon.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Yeah, Michael Taube. syndicated columnist Michael Tobe. Back right after this, we'll speak with the Canadian Federation of Independent Business ahead of the fiscal update happening this afternoon at 4 o'clock. Also, Benjamin Reitzes is with BMO Capital Markets, where he is Director of Canadian Rates and Macro Strategist. That's also on the Bank of Canada mandate, the fiscal update this afternoon. Inflation rate comes out tomorrow. It is like Christmas for economists. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
The food cupboard started about 25 years ago. Again, it was a very small operation in the basement of a church. And we have been expanding to the point where we needed to have a new facility. So in discussion with the city of Ottawa, and Jan Harder, the local representative here, we came to this location, which is about 2,000 square feet, located in the Walter Baker Center. We've been here for about 2 years, and it is much better. It gives us a much broader opportunity to serve our clients better. It's a fairly affluent community in Barrhaven, so you wouldn't think that people would really need to have a food bank or a food cupboard. But people sometimes have a temporary loss of their job, maybe new immigrants or refugees to the community. Maybe there's been an injury in the family or something like a pandemic that causes people to run short of food during their monthly requirements. So we offer any clients who come and live in our catchment area the opportunity to pick up an order of food every 3 or 4 weeks. The need varies from time to time. We have expanded our offering to include quite a few perishables, eggs, milk, cheese, yogurt, vegetables, fruit. But people, I think, know that we need cans of beans and stuff as well, too. One thing that we're consistently short of sometimes is personal hygiene products. You go to the grocery store, you buy your toothpaste and you buy your deodorant and shampoo there. People don't automatically think that to donate those kinds of things to a food cupboard. So we end up buying quite a few of those things from time to time. The pandemic has affected us like it has everybody. Initially, we had to stop the grocery store food donations so that we didn't have any risk of contamination and to have a significant number of volunteer work to be done in our facility. We have a storefront, so it's like a mini grocery store where you take a cart and you go around and pick out the things that you want. That doesn't work during the pandemic to maintain social distancing and so on. So what we have now is our clients can come in one at a time, they make an appointment, they stand behind a line, and they direct our volunteer to, I'd like Kellogg's cornflakes rather than Harvest Crunch, to pick the food that they would like off the shelves according to the allocation, depending on the size of their family. And then they take it out, load it into their vehicle or whatever, bring back the cart, we disinfect everything, and prepare for the next client. We are very blessed here in Barrhaven. We're a totally volunteer organization. So if you give a dollar to us, it goes to purchasing food or to provide some service to our clients.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, it's a big day in federal politics. 4 o'clock is the fiscal update from the Minister of Finance, Chrystia Freeland. Yesterday it was the Bank of Canada mandate. Today it is the fall fiscal update, and tomorrow it is the inflation rate. But let's focus right now on the fiscal update. Corinne Pullman, Senior Vice President, National Affairs, Canadian Federation, Independent Business, joins me this morning here on City News. Good morning.
Good morning.
What are you hoping to hear in the fiscal update today from the finance minister?
We're hoping to hear a little bit of positive news for smaller businesses who are still struggling due to COVID and quite worried about where things might be going given some of the more ominous news we're hearing these days around the Omicron variant. Mm-hmm. There is some new programs. There's been nothing actually available since the end of October because the previous programs ended, and the new programs have not yet been implemented as they go through a legislative process. But the new programs that could be available to small businesses should they need some financial help may not help as many as we would like. And that's something we would hope they would fix before they finalize this particular legislation. Yeah.
There are shortcomings. There are shortcomings there.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, there is.
Okay, what are they?
So essentially, there's two programs. There's something called the Tourism and Hospitality Recovery Program.
Yep.
So it's sort of focused more on the tourism and hospitality sectors, which were definitely among the hardest hit. But you're going to need to have a 40% revenue loss or demonstrate a 40% revenue loss to access it. And for those that are not in tourism and hospitality, there's a second program called the Hardest Hit Sector Business Recovery Program.
Yes.
And for that, though, you're going to require a 50% revenue loss in order to access. So that means anybody who's got 25, 30, 35% revenue losses, which for a small company is not sustainable for a long period of time, you're out of luck. There's not going to be anything available for you anymore. So,
And your study of the language in this bill would lead you to believe at the CFIB that probably about 80% of businesses in these sectors of need would actually qualify for the aid that's being offered by the federal government. Is that accurate?
it would not qualify. So
would
only
not
about,
qualify, yeah.
Correct, yeah. Only about 1 in 5 from our research are actually going to qualify for these programs that say that they need help still. So that's a big concern for us. And we'd love to hear some news about what they might still be able to do to help those businesses, especially because we're coming into a period where we're starting to hear about restrictions being reimposed in certain parts of Canada.
And is it the revenue differential, the 40% figure, is that the problem, or?
Yeah,
that's been problematic in the past. So.
Yeah, it is. It's essentially a pretty high bar still for smaller companies to access. If you have to remember that this has been going on for 18 months to 2 years. Many of these businesses have accumulated massive amounts of debt to keep their businesses running. They're still not back to full revenues compared to pre-pandemic, and so they're struggling still to understand why they can't necessarily get just a little bit more help to get through the winter. We want to see these programs end as much as anybody else, but the fact remains that we're just not quite there yet. So we're concerned that these programs are going to actually leave a lot of businesses that are still deserving out of the picture.
Okay. What's your sense? I know you're surveying your members all the time. We were hearing, the savings rate is way up. Canadians can't wait to get out and shop and spend. And here we are. It's 10 days till Christmas.
Yeah.
Okay. How's business? What are you hearing? How's business?
It's been a tough year, and it continues to be a tough year. I think there's certainly some businesses that are benefiting from the Christmas period right now, but only 36% of our members are telling us they're back to normal sales, and so that is a concern. And I think part of that is, we're still trying to figure out why it's still so low and it hasn't really gotten much higher. Is it, as people's consumer habits changed, are they, still basically focusing on online or bigger retailers? Is it something else that's going on in the background that we're not aware of? I mean, also we're dealing with inflation, as I think you mentioned, as well as, logistics issues around supply chain issues. So there's a lot of things coming at them at the moment that kind of are keeping those revenues from growing.
I'd love to sell you this, that, or the other thing, but I don't have it in stock. That's probably a big frustration for some people.
It is, exactly, yeah. And getting that can be really frustrating because, if you're a small player, it's harder to get those particular pieces in stock. So, but I still encourage Canadians and folks out there to think about the small businesses when they're looking to purchase this Christmas.
Well said. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yep, Corinne Pullman is Senior Vice President, National Affairs at the CFIB. 4 o'clock is the fiscal update from the Minister of Finance, Chrystia Freeland. More coverage on that right after the news on City News.
In Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
This is Tuesday, the 14th of December. Good morning, I'm Jason White. Right now in Ottawa, it's mainly sunny and 0. It's 1 degree in Smiths Falls. Here's what's making news this hour. Parents and allies are getting ready to protest outside a Gatineau MNA's office over the noon hour. It's over the removal of a teacher from her classroom at a Chelsea school because she wears a hijab. Could be another contender for Mayor of Ottawa. Rita Vanier's Matthew Fleury says he's encouraged by the support he's received so far, but says running for mayor is something that takes a lot of consideration and consultation with people like his family before he makes a decision. The current mayor, Jim Watson, says he's tested negative for COVID-19. He had been isolating at home since Saturday when a staffer tested positive for the virus. Watson says he'll continue holding off on in-person meetings until he receives a second negative COVID test. An Ottawa epidemiologist says the spread of the new Omicron variant of COVID-19 may lead to new restrictions in Ottawa. Dr. Doug Manuel says we're a couple days away, maybe a week or two, from Kingston's situation. They've clamped down on bars and restaurants, and social gatherings in the Limestone City are now limited to no more than 5 people. City News Time, 11:32. I'm Jason White. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Firm.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Well, yesterday was a renewed mandate for the Bank of Canada. Today it is the fiscal update, and tomorrow it is the latest reading on inflation. Benjamin Reitzes joins us now from BMO Capital Markets, where he is Director of Canadian Rates and Macro Strategy. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob. How are you?
I'm good.
Excellent.
You know, it's 10 days from Christmas, but this is like Christmas for economists.
Yeah.
I also heard that there's like 19 central banks are making their rate announcements this week. So
it's a busy week.
Yeah, you have a lot. So I want to begin with yesterday's news, and then we'll kind of work our way through it here. The mandate from the Bank of Canada. What should our listeners know about how that is changing, if at all, Mr. Wright?
Well, the changes are, I guess, just catching up with reality to where the Bank of Canada already is. What they've agreed to, the Bank of Canada and the federal government, is that they're going to continue targeting inflation. That is still their primary target. They've had a 1 to 3% band in inflation, so they're okay when it's in there, but they've really targeted 2%, so the middle of that band. What's changed on that front is there's going to be a little less emphasis on that 2% point, and they'll be a little more flexible when it's in, as long as it's in that 1 to 3% range. And on top of that, what they're going to try and do, and as long as inflation's in that range, they're going to try and ensure that, or do their best to get employment as strong as possible, seek maximum employment. So that's the change. They historically hadn't included any wording around employment in their mandate. So that's changed. A lot of that can be viewed as somewhat political, but at the same time, I mean, that the bank's already been doing this. They've been talking about employment and labor markets for years, and that is a key driver for inflation for them. So really nothing changes fundamentally.
Nothing changes fundamentally. How can a central bank's monetary policy help with better employment figures, say in a country like Canada?
Well, it says in their statement, they actually say that monetary policy should continue to support it, but it is not directly measurable for maximum sustainable employment, okay. And it's determined largely by non-monetary factors. The agreement and the statement from the bank and the government states that there is little in reality monetary policy can do, but if inflation is low, if inflation is contained, then they can keep interest rates lower for maybe a little bit longer than they otherwise would to help boost employment and economic activity that much more.
Right, which brings us then to fiscal policy, right? Which I guess is more, has more influence on the labor market. Is that fair enough then, Mr. Wright?
Most definitely.
Most definitely. Okay, then. Nice segue. Then, with that being said, what are economists looking for from the fiscal update today?
Not a whole lot. Unfortunately, I guess it's a big week, but by the same token, we're not expecting that much. The backdrop from a fiscal perspective, we already know, has been significantly better. If you look at what the provinces have reported over the past weeks and then a couple of months now, revenues have been up significantly from where they thought they'd be, and so deficits have been notably smaller on the provincial side. That's going to be half of the story on the federal side. Revenues are definitely going to be higher, but that's also going to be matched by higher spending as well. And so the deficit looks like it's probably going to come in still around $155 billion. We think that forecast stays little changed. There is a chance, though, that last year's $354 billion gap does get revised down a little bit. But I guess we'll see on that. No big new measures are really expected. They tend to kind of leak out in bits and pieces before the update, and we haven't seen all that much over the past couple of weeks.
There is a published report, however, for Indigenous child welfare compensation and reforms to the child welfare compensation. Big price tag there, $40 billion. But I think what people will be looking for is like, what kind of time frame is that $40 billion figure?
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think
because that is a big ticket. That is a big spending item, $40 billion.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
So,
most definitely. Yeah. I think you want to see the timeline, the details, all those things before you come to any judgment on that.
Sure. Okay. So let's go to tomorrow then. I mean, inflation has really been the story. There's been this, great debate about, is it transitory? Is it not transitory? Dinosaurs were transitory. Your colleague Doug Porter came up with that one. Apparently, dinosaurs were transitory too. Now even the Fed is saying, well, it's not transitory. So, and we just thought there was a big PPI number this morning, which was north of 9%. That's wholesale inflation. So tomorrow we get retail consumer inflation in Canada. What's the consensus say? What are economists looking for from tomorrow's number?
We are actually with the consensus. We're looking for inflation to hold steady at 4.7% year over year, so just shy of 5%. Prices were seemingly, at least from what we have so far, a little bit tamer. But for some of the things that we don't really have a good measure on ahead of time, you never know. Things may have heated up a little bit more. Some of those underlying price pressures may have picked up further. So the risks are still on the upside, even if inflation is not expected to increase. And you're right, this morning's producer price number in the U.S. really exemplifies that. And at nearly 10% there, that's a big number. And if you go back, so that they changed the methodology, the way they measure that in 2009. If you take the series with more history, the way they used to measure it, you're looking at the highest since the early 1980s. For U.S. producer prices, the inflation there. So there's the inflation risks have not fallen at all at this point, and there's a chance that Omicron and potential disruptions driven by that cause this inflation pressure to linger even longer.
Okay, I know that in speaking with some of your colleagues at BMO Capital Markets, that you were expecting maybe as many as 4 rate hikes next year, beginning in the spring. Is that still the call?
That's still the call for now.
Yeah, still the call for now.
We're
okay. Yeah.
Still comfortable. I think we'll see how restrictions play out from an Omicron perspective. I mean, we are seeing kind of bits and pieces. Kingston put some in place, and it does seem as though it's a matter of time for most jurisdictions. But the extent of the restrictions does matter pretty significantly, and how disruptive they are for spending. So I think that's something you have to watch, and you can't judge ahead of time. Yeah. But the thing is, it's not going to change the inflation story. And that's definitely something that you have to keep in mind. And it'll put the Bank of Canada in a difficult spot if you get activity slowing and inflation staying as hot as it is. They'll be in tough. So it'll be interesting to see the way they go. Worst case, Omicron probably just delays this a little bit, the tightening cycle a little bit, and rate hikes maybe get pushed back a bit. But I wouldn't expect it to be much more than that, because one thing we do know is all these waves are very much seasonal. And so as bad as it might get this winter, as soon as the sun starts to shine a little brighter, things should look much better.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Reitzes. It's great to hear from you today and have your perspective.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, bye-bye. So again, 4 o'clock this afternoon for Chrystia Freeland, the Minister of Finance and the Deputy Prime Minister. 4 o'clock with the fiscal update. And then tomorrow morning, it'll be 8:30, Statistics Canada, and it will be the latest reading on inflation, and that will be an 8:30 number tomorrow morning. So we'll be all over that story tomorrow. Coming up next, we've been playing highlights from my interview with Dr. Doug Manuel, senior scientist with the Ottawa Hospital and a member of the Ontario Science Advisory Table. We haven't played you our conversation in its entirety, and that's coming up next, right here on The Rob Snow Show on City News.
I'm blessed to be married to someone who is a scientist and spent a lot of time following what was happening over in China ahead of time. So he did give us the heads up that this was coming. Not that we believed him right off the bat, but when it did happen very, very quickly, we were prepared. We had hand sanitizer and we were set up to not close our doors. So we locked the kitchen down at Wellington Street, but we left this kitchen open. We put in protocols immediately. We only allowed our very small crew of 4 or 5 people in at the time. No deliveries were allowed to come in or out of the building without, they just weren't allowed in and out of the building. So we met them at the loading dock and had very strict protocols in place right away. We had masks and hand sanitizer and the whole thing. So we're very lucky from that perspective, and we're able to, learn as we went, as far as doing small, individually packed caterings, the frozen soup program, food for the Ottawa mission. So we didn't have to close the kitchen and then learn how to reopen it. We just were able to modify and shift as we needed to. Because of our partnership with the Ottawa Mission, we were able to very quickly help support them. They were able to send us some product and some supplies, so it wasn't a burden on our business, and we were able to supply the staffing and the packaging to help produce that when they needed it the most. And we produced about 1,400 meals a week to complement their meals, and we started our soup program right away. We realized very quickly that there was a need in the community to get together and all work together, not only to support local, but also just to support all the people that were suddenly in a position of, being locked down and not being able to get out. So by starting that soup program, our community, our clients got online and started making donations for the soups, and we were able to produce the soups and get them back out to people that needed it. We're right now currently making 150 liters of soup per week, but we've made, I would say, 5,000 or 6,000, easily since the pandemic. Probably more. I'd have to do the math. But lots. I think everybody in the city has to be very aware of how blessed we were to have great weather this summer and people were able to get out and about, and that's going to shift. So we do have to be much more aware of who our most vulnerable is, and I really think we have to work together as groups. There are so many organizations in the city that are doing something and contributing and working together, and I think it doesn't matter who, but see what you can do to just step up and help them, whatever it is, whether it's driving or delivering food, or someone has extra zucchini in their garden, or if they can afford to donate some money to any of these organizations. I just think we all have to work together. We're smarter and wiser than we were the first time.
Pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
We're welcoming back to City News and the Rob Snow Show this morning Dr. Doug Manuel, senior scientist, Ottawa Hospital, member of the Science Advisory Table for the Ontario government. Good morning again.
Good morning, Rob.
How likely is it that what is happening in Kingston, just 2 hours from here, could eventually happen in Ottawa?
It will happen within days, if not a week or two.
And what leads you to believe that?
Rob, we've gone through a lot together on this. Everyone's gone through a lot through the pandemic, but we're facing. It could be our most challenging, if not it's one of our most challenging, just because because we're now facing basically a super transmissible variant, much more transmissible than Delta, which is in itself much more transmissible than previous variants. So the challenge is it's just so transmissible, and it's going to spread very quickly.
Okay, so we have seen in that local health unit, KFLA, which kind of sounds like a radio station, but it's a health unit, okay? They're imposing some restrictions. Limits in restaurants, limits on serving alcohol, singing, these sorts of things. At least for a week, anyway. I guess they're going to try it for a week. What do you think about what they're doing there? And do you think it's only a matter of time before restrictions like that become more widespread?
Well, remember in Sudbury, just up the valley, they've been having similar restrictions, reduced restaurants for a few weeks now, Windsor as well, Windsor-Essex area. And then in Manitoba, they canceled surgeries on Friday, cardiovascular surgeries. So, this is the pattern that we've seen throughout the pandemic. When you see your neighbors starting to increase restrictions, the likelihood of it coming to us is pretty reasonable. That said, I think it's the question of, I'm not the policymaker, so I'm not going to be the one that has to make that decision. But when I see this trend, I see this coming. And in terms of whether it's required, we're in a very difficult position because our best way, our least intrusive way and best way to reduce what we're seeing is going to be vaccination, but we just can't vaccinate fast enough. So do we need to get some breathing room? Do we need to put in some restrictions, circuit breakers, other things? And it's good, it will take a while to get those vaccinations. Even if we vaccinate people today with a third dose or first dose, it's going to take 2 weeks for that to kick in.
Okay. What would you say to people? I mean, I was looking up the dashboard for Ottawa Public Health this morning. We have a half a dozen people in the hospital, in Ottawa hospitals. We have nobody in ICU, mercifully, knock on wood, with COVID-19. Even in the Kingston area, the hospitalizations are 4 and ICU admissions are 1. This does not sound right now to be any kind of crisis, Doctor.
Yeah, no, I get I get emails too and saying like, what are you talking about? I think I look at that as our strength right now, that we have low hospitalization rates and low ICU rates. So we're in a better situation to address this than say Winnipeg, that's having difficulties, and they haven't, Omicron really hasn't hit there yet, or in Europe or US or UK or Denmark, which we've been running a lot lower. So that puts us in a good position. I appreciate that it's really difficult to wrap your head around it. This is like, for me, kind of March, where I was saying, or all the scientists were saying, watch out, we're getting a surge. And, and you have even, our government officials saying, oh yeah, we're watching it. And we're saying, don't watch, act. And we got caught off guard by that. This is coming in much, much faster than we saw in the spring. And so I think it's a strength that we've got capacity now. And that's going to help us compared to other people.
Right. So it goes back. I was thinking this morning, getting ready for the show, because I think everybody's sick and tired of going through all of these. It's a real roller coaster, an emotional roller coaster for a lot of people. At least that's how I feel, anyway. But I was thinking this morning about, there's that old Gretzky line. I think it's attributed to I think it's Walter Gretzky. Skate where the puck is going to be, not where it's been.
Exactly.
You want us to be skating where the puck is going to be, right? And we know where the puck is going to be because it's been there before.
Exactly. Right. Except this is now a slap shot. We got to skate faster to get the puck.
Okay. It's a slap shot. Okay. All right. Okay. All right.
No, we're on, so what was replied to, I think it was Maxime Bernier, said, both people unvaccinated or vaccinated can transmit, and then people replied, yeah, but I could play tennis, but I'm going on the court with Serena Williams. We're now on the ice with trying to catch up to Wayne Gretzky's passes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What about schools? There's a lot of anxiety out there, I think, because the government really hasn't said much about what's going on with schools as we approach the Christmas break. So that when there's a knowledge vacuum, people look to fill in that knowledge vacuum, and rumors start to fly that kids might not go back to school in January, and we might have to go back to online learning if this thing really takes off. Any kind of idea what might happen there, or what should happen there, Doctor?
I think at the science table we've talked about the need to have schools for once close last if we do get to that point. So when I see these big events with thousands of people not wearing masks, and then if we're having a discussion about whether schools can be closed, I just find that heartbreaking. Will it come to that? It's possible. Like we need to be reducing our contact now. I think the concern is that it just comes in so quickly that we could have people coming into hospital very quickly and start losing our hospital capacity. And so we may need to slow this down through whatever means. That said, we're concerned even that we have to have really restrictive measures, the circuit breakers or things like that, to have a meaningful way of slowing this down to be able to get our vaccinations up.
Okay, in the front page story for the Ottawa Citizen this morning, this is what it says. As of December 7th, which was a week ago, the effective reproduction number of Omicron, the rate at which it spreads, was 4.07.
Yeah.
Compared with 1.09 for Delta, according to the science table. So what does that mean for exponential growth? Because that's a big, scary number to me.
It is. And, in the paper today, Ottawa paper, I was quoted saying, you have to I had to splash my face with water. Even for us, and it's been difficult to kind of wrap your head around that. And our house we're having difficulties here, with the thought that I was putting so much into having Christmas with the grandparents. It's been so important, and we're having difficulties walking through everything in our house for sure. But what it means is that by the end of the week, Omicron will be more than 50% of the cases in Ontario, from 0, 2 weeks ago, or almost 0, like say 2 weeks ago. So again, it's difficult because you don't see it. It's this number underneath
Right.
What the daily numbers. But by the end of the week, it won't be that number underneath. It will be the dominant variant.
And what's the experience as it becomes the dominant variant? Does the R number necessarily decrease over time?
There's only two things that are going to decrease that R number.
Okay.
When we run out of people to infect,
okay, or
we increase our reduce transmission through physical distancing, vaccination, etc.
Okay.
So if we don't do anything,
right,
that R number will stay that height until we run out of people to infect.
Right. And a reminder for people what that number means. My understanding is, let's say I have Omicron, a number of, let's just round it off and call it 4, then I'll infect 4 people, right?
Yeah.
And then each one of those people will infect 4 more people, and, and that's where you get the exponential growth. I was trying to do, grown men cry when I do math. I was trying to do this online this morning, and according to an online calculator I found, you could go from, with an R number like that, you could go from something like 0 to 1 million cases in 2 months.
Yeah, exactly.
2 months.
So, yeah. No,
that's not unrealistic, right?
No, say today we have got, I don't know, I'm going to say 20 cases of Omicron today in Ottawa. In a week, that's going to be doubled and doubled again. So 20, 40, 80 in a week. And then a week later, it's doubled and doubled again. Say it's 3.5 days, So 80, that's 160, 163, 320. And so we get, now we're into in Ottawa, tens of thousands of people being infected by the beginning of January. And the problem is that tens of thousands of people, like even if 1% of those people, become hospitalized, then we have 100. 10,000 people. We're going to have 100 people in the hospital.
Wow. Okay.
So that's the challenge. That's the math.
Then it becomes a pure numbers game.
Yeah.
Because even if the disease is, say, less severe or mild, there will be people who will end up in the hospital. But because you're talking about such a big round number to begin with, or a big raw number to begin with, it won't take much to overwhelm a hospital like the Ottawa Hospital.
No, and you could be on the ice with Wayne Gretzky and think that you can dodge his slap shot. I guess he doesn't have the biggest slap shot, but now you put 100 Wayne Gretzkys on shooting at you.
Right. Yeah.
Very fast moving, and to dodge this. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe to wrap this up, best ideas right now to avoid all of these terrible outcomes.
That's right. Let's
booster shots, right?
Yeah, booster shot. Yeah, let's leave on some things that people can do for sure. Yeah.
What about rapid tests? What about rapid tests?
Yeah. So we've debated and quibbled about. People have thought about rapid tests when cases are low, but now they're high, and rapid testing is going to be something that you can do to protect yourself or help, and we might need it. So for people that go work in the long-term care home, this is a way that we can protect the residents by having the workers, whether they have 2, maybe even 3 shots, do rapid testing before we go in, so it can protect.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more